Hello everyone, welcome to StudyIQ IAS English. I am your educator Praveen Mishra, and this session is for all of our dear aspirants, those who have given the mains examination and all those who are planning or preparing themselves for the next years, that is 2026 or 27 of the mains, right? So GS paper 1 discussion is here with all of us. And now let me just discuss about the level of question first of all. So this is a very personal opinion as well as a professional opinion, both on the same side. Okay. The level of question was, we were expecting that it would, go ahead and it would shoot. It would be having some skyrocket thing. But to be very honest, guys, on a very personal as well as professional note, the question paper this time proves to be a very moderate or even less than moderate and more than easy thing, right? So you can say an average question paper, it was at least GS paper 1. Okay, so nevertheless, it's all about our preparation. If we have prepared, it was easy. If we haven't, then obviously it was difficult. But I know our students, our aspirants, they have prepared it well and they have, wrote some wonderful answers. And here we are to provide you some wonderful insights as well, some extra level of knowledge addition, value addition on the very same part, right? So to begin with, I have got with me Alok Ojha sir. But yes, before I call him, just one thing that we must understand. Alok Ojha sir, just 3 days back, around 72 hours maximum, what we must say, he took a session, okay, termed as important topics or key topics for UPSC mains. So there he discussed around 5 to 6 questions. And from those 5 or 6 questions, roughly 3 to 4 questions are word by word, not exactly, but yes, they are present there in our today's question paper, right? So now with this, you can understand that how much, the faculties with StudyIQ, they are having the profound and in-depth knowledge and how much they are going ahead with the utmost level of dedication to provide you the quantity along with the assurance of quality. So let me call on the stage here Alok Ojha sir, who will take guard of the particular discussion of the history section. Sir, it's all over you.
Thanks a lot, Praveen sir. So, first of all, thank you, Praveen sir, for giving me this opportunity to explain all those things and discuss the paper today. Praveen sir, after me, would be throwing insights into post-independence, wherein you will find one question in the examination. Okay, guys? So, let's begin with today's session now.
Okay, see you guys. See you, sir.
Okay, thank you, sir. So, hello, everyone. Yes, guys, am I audible to all of you? Hello, everyone. So, like just right now, Praveen sir have thrown light on, like 2 days or 3 days back, I had taken a small session and it was approximately 47 to 48 minutes session. And in that session, you can go through that session as well after this session. Okay. Therein, I have told you before appearing for the mains examination, what key topics that you need to focus on. Okay. I'll give you a very small example, around 7 minutes. Okay, just a second. Around approximately 7 minutes or 7 minutes, 5 seconds or something like of that video. Observe what I've told you precisely about specifically which topic needs to be focused on. And I started my discussion of the main important topics with Indus Valley Civilization. And fortunately, the first question of UPSC was on the salient features of Harappan architecture, which majorly focused on the town planning aspect. Yes, good evening, Shiva. Okay, so listen to me carefully, like what kind of questions have been asked. Second question, I've told you to focus on the administration of the Mughals. Okay, and I've also told you just go and read about the Mansabdari system and everything about Akbar. Another important second question that UPSC has asked, examine the main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism. That is amalgamation of the different principles of different religions. Okay. So now I have also talked about go and just have a reflection of the difference between Dravida style of architecture and Nagara style of architecture. And question has been asked, the sculptors of the Chandela art form with resilient vigor and breadth of life, elucidate, that is clarify. Okay, so step by step manner, we are going to discuss about all the questions today within next 30 to 40 minutes. Okay? If you have any query, any kind of doubt, please feel free to ask me. Got it, my friends? So let's begin. The salient features of Harappan architecture. Now, if I talk about the salient features of Harappan architecture, okay? Now, let's begin with extent of Indus Valley civilization. Okay? So, the northernmost site of Indus Valley civilization in India is Manda, located in Jammu and Kashmir. Although Shortugai and Mundigak in Afghanistan are also considered as the northernmost site of Indus Valley civilization. But in India, it is Manda, located in Jammu and Kashmir. The southernmost site is Daimabad, located in Ahmednagar district of Maharashtra. Easternmost site is Alamgirpur, located on the banks of river Hindan, which is a tributary of river Yamuna. And the westernmost site of Indus Valley civilization is Sutka Gandhor, located on Pakistan-Iran border. So this is about the extent of Indus Valley civilization. So as a part of your answer, my personal suggestion would be, first of all, go with extent of Indus Valley civilization. Second thing, explain the basic typology of Indus Valley civilization through a small diagram. Example. Now, Indus Valley civilization, it is divided into, or the major cities of Indus Valley civilization or Harappan civilization are divided into two parts: upper citadel and lower citadel. Now, what is the meaning of the word citadel? Citadel is nothing but a wall-like fortification or a wall-like structure which protects the city from getting flooded. Very simple words. I'll give you a very small example. Okay? Suppose this is a lower part of the city. So it is located above a slope, or there is a wall-like fortification which protects the city from getting flooded. This is the upper part of the city, referred as upper citadel. So this section is referred as citadel, a wall-like fortification or a slope-like structure which protects the city from getting flooded. Okay? Mohenjo-daro, as the name suggests, mound of dead. The city probably might have been destroyed by floods, and the citadel might have been destroyed in that case. Chanudaro, another example. It is the only Indus Valley site without a citadel. It did not had a citadel. So explain the basic typology. Okay, please go in your answers along with your diagrammatic representation. Okay, third important aspect that you can explain is the concept of great granary. And this is the structure of great granary. Okay. 2 rows of 6 granary have been found at the site of Harappa, located in present-day Pakistan on the banks of river Ravi. So what is granary basically means? Okay. Previously, as a part of Ancient Indian History series, we had studied prehistoric culture and Indus Valley civilization. Therein, we had studied one age, Neolithic age. With the Neolithic age, humans started practicing agriculture. Once they started practicing agriculture, they started developing earthen vessels. What was the purpose of earthen vessel? It was highly utilitarian in character. It was used for cooking, eating, drinking, and storing the food grains. So what is the meaning of the word granary here? Granary simply means godowns for storing the food grains. You can imagine one thing. If initially the food grains were stored in earthen vessels, and now for storing the food grains, silos or warehouses or granaries are required, you can imagine the surplus amount of food grain production prevalent during the time of Indus Valley civilization. True? So, this concept is called as great granary. It is approximately 45.7 meter long and 15.23 meters wide. This is nothing but agricultural field where the crops are being produced. This is the threshing floor where the grain is separated from the chaff or the crop. This place is called as granary, where actually the grains are being stored. the laborers who are working here, the laborers who are working here, where will they stay? They will stay at this place. And this place is referred as barracks. And the purpose of barracks was majorly to house the laborers. Clear? Fourth important aspect that you can explain in that question or in this question, along with the diagrammatic representation, is the town planning structure. Okay? Again, I'll give you a very small example about this. The main road, they are comparatively broader in comparison to the side lanes or alleys. These side lanes or alleys, they are narrower in comparison to the main roads. Okay? Like it is approximately 13 to 34 feet. It is approximately 9 to 11 feet. Okay? Now, in the main roads, specifically what happens here, as a part of lower citadel, the well is located between two houses. But in upper citadel, the well is located within the courtyard of the house itself. Got it? The wells are made up of burnt bricks. The houses are single story or double story. How do we come to know about this? The evidence of staircases at the site of Mohenjo-daro suggests that houses might be double story. Clear? Then moving ahead, it is also believed that houses are made up of burnt bricks and wood. There are more number of doors in comparison to the windows. The drains are covered by the stone slabs, which simply highlight one thing. The people of Indus Valley civilization were aware about hygiene. And the last important component as a part of Harappan architecture that you can explain is the concept of Great Bath, which was found at the site of Mohenjo-daro. Like Great Bath, it is approximately 8 feet deep. There is no use of a single stone in the entire Great Bath. The entire Great Bath, it is made up of burnt bricks. At a specific point, you will find an inlet through which the fresh water enters into the bath. And another specific point, you will find an outlet through which the filthy water is being drained out. Okay? It might be the part of ritualistic practice followed by the Harappans. So, in the first question, in the diagrammatic format, you could have explained 5 important things. First, the extent of Indus Valley civilization. Second point that you could have explained here is, apart from this, concept of great granary, which was found at the site of Harappa. Third important one was the basic typology, the upper citadel and the lower citadel. Then comes the structure of the towns, the roads, and so on. And finally, explain the concept of Great Bath that was found at the site of Mohenjo-daro. Clear about the first question? Okay, guys, I have talked about the first question in the important mains topic as well. Just go through that video as well. Now, let's understand about the second aspect, the main, what we say, examine the main aspects of Akbar's religious syncretism. Mughal administration. Now, basically here as a part of introduction, you have to mention a bit about Akbar. And as a part of main body, you have to throw light on the concept of Din-e-Illahi. Okay? Now, specifically speaking, what points do you need to focus on in this answer? Listen to me carefully. The foundation of Mughal Empire was being laid down by Babur. Okay, right now I'm also going through the Medieval Indian series on YouTube. So you can also go through the series of what we say Medieval Indian history. So foundation of Mughal Empire was being laid down by Babur. He was being succeeded by his son, who was referred as Humayun. Humayun, basically it's a Persian word which basically means the most fortunate enough. But unfortunately, he was the most unfortunate ruler of the entire Mughal dynasty. And when Humayun passed away, Akbar was 13 to 14 years of age. And at that time, he was at Kalanor Gurdaspur, where he was fighting battle against Hemu, also referred as Hem Chandra Vikramaditya. And this is nothing but famous Second Battle of Panipat, which was fought in 1556 between the Mughal forces led by Akbar and represented by his regent Bairam Khan and Hemu. Akbar emerged victorious, and with the passage of time, Akbar started following the policy of imperialism. Like there are famous, like Akbar had conquered the region of Malwa, Gujarat, Bihar and Bengal, Gondwana from Rani Durgavati and Veer Narayanji. Akbar's Rajputana expeditions are quite famous, precisely the region of Amer, that is modern-day Jaipur, Merta, around the region of Nagaur, precisely in the region of Rajasthan. The famous Battle of Haldi Ghati, followed by Battle of Dever, which was fought in 1582, which is also referred as Marathon of Mewar. Okay? Now, these are the important imperialistic policies that have been followed by Akbar. So as a part of introduction, okay, just explain how Akbar rose to power within 20 to 30 words. Now comes about the religious policies of Akbar. Akbar had many Rajput wives, okay? And in 1582, Akbar started Din-e-Illahi at a place called as Fatehpur Sikri. A very simple example about this is, precisely speaking, after the victory over the region of Gujarat, Akbar constructed a new city, Fatehpur Sikri, which is approximately 60 to 65 kilometers away from the region of Agra. And here he started Ibadat Khana, wherein the scholars or the religious scholars from all the religions were being called, like Jain scholars, scholars from Zoroastrianism, then specifically Islamic scholar, Hindu scholars, and all the common points were being discussed. Whatever came as a part of the discussion, this was given the name of a new religion in the form of Din-e-Illahi. There was a proper focus on different virtues, different ethical values, such as compassion, okay, sympathy, empathy, which are the common tenets of all the major religions. Also said that Mahesh Das ji, also referred as Birbal, he was the first to join Din-e-Illahi, the new religion that was being proposed by Akbar. So what does the word syncretism here means? Syncretism in simple words means amalgamation. As I've told you, here at Ibadat Khana, the religious scholars from all the religions came. Jainism, Zoroastrianism, Islam, Hinduism, Christianity. So the common principle of all the religion was the output in the form of Din-e-Illahi. Many believe that there were many qazis and ulemas who were opposed to the concept of Din-e-Illahi or Sulh-e-Kul, peace for all. In fact, as a part of Din-e-Illahi, Akbar had issued Mazhar-Nama. And what is that? There should be no discrimination on the basis of religion or caste. And for this, there was fatwa issued against Akbar from the region of Jaunpur. Later on, Akbar had to cancel the concept of Din-e-Illahi. So here, this simply highlights, or this question is asking about, elaborate in detail about the new religion, Din-e-Illahi, that was being initiated by Mughal Emperor Akbar. Is it clear, my friends? Now coming to the third important question. Did you get the concept? Okay? Like, as I've told you, watch the previous video that I've taken 2 days back. Okay? In that case, I have started my video with Indus Valley Civilization. And the first question here is, discuss the salient features of Harappan architecture. Then, narrowly, I've told you, focus on the Mughal administration and focus on Mansabdari system and things related to Akbar. The question here comes, Akbar's religious policy. Okay. Now let's understand about the third question. The sculptors filled the Chandela art form with resilient vigor and breath of life. Elucidate. Elucidate simply means clarify. This is a statement and clarify the statement. How will you clarify the statement? By citing an example, by going through an illustration. Okay? Now, let me give you a small example about temple architecture. See, the systematic format of temple architecture, it actually started during the time of Guptas. And you might have read about one thing, that Gupta age is also referred as golden age of temple architecture. Now, why it is referred as golden age of temple architecture? Because Guptas gave a systematic identity to the temple format or architecture. And the evolution of architecture during the time of Guptas, specifically in the northern part of India, is referred as Nagara style of architecture. And Nagara style of architecture is majorly prevalent or seen in major types of what we say temples precisely present in the northern part of India. Correct? And these are the important components of Nagara style of architecture. Day before yesterday, I had taken a session and I've given you one of the example, due to Ram Mandir, which was being created, dedicated to Maryada Purushottam Lord Ram. There could be a question on comparative analysis of Nagara style of architecture and Dravida style of architecture. And here a question has been asked in another format about Chandela dynasty, and you have to elaborate about the Khajuraho group of temples. As soon as the name Chandela dynasty, which ruled over the region of Jejabhukti, also referred as Bundelkhand, comes, the first thing that reflects in our mind is Khajuraho group of temples. Okay? Now let me go with the basic snippets of temple architecture for easier understanding of the concept. Now, just imagine one thing. Just imagine. Suppose you're entering a temple. You for what we say, you go through certain flight of steps and you observe an open space. Then you come, you see the bell. After ringing the bell, you start moving further. You see the DT, okay? And DT, he's sitting in a particular sanctum sanctorum. You stand in front of the DT and pray. Correct? Come back. Let's go in a very simple manner. You climb the flight of steps. You see an open space, and that open space is referred as Jagati. You move forward. You enter the temple, you move forward. You observe Mandapam. Okay? An open space. And Mandapam, it is divided into different parts. Mahamandapam, Ardha Mandapam, wherein you will see the people are praying, people are performing bhajans and kirtans. Correct? Then, suppose you go to the temple of Lord Shiva, you observe Nandi. Correct? Lord Nandi specifically sitting, that is nothing but Vahan. If you go to the temple of Lord Ganesha, you will find a mouse. True? So that is Vahan. Just like after Vahan, you will observe the place where the main deity is kept. And that place is called as Garbhagriha. And between Vahan and Garbhagriha, there is a space which is referred as Antrala. This was the horizontal one. Let's go with the vertical one. Shikhar, this pyramid-like structure. Then you observe Amlak. Then you observe Kalash. Okay? This is Dhwaj. You observe Kalash. So this is nothing but the vertical structure. You will observe these kind of things precisely in the temple architecture of the Guptas plus the North Indian style of temple architecture precisely in the Khajuraho group of temples. Chandela dynasty, it ruled approximately from 9th to 12th century. And Nanuka, he laid down the foundation of Chandela dynasty. They ruled over the region of Jejabhukti. And specifically speaking, here, Jejabhukti is nothing but the Bundelkhand region of Madhya Pradesh and certain parts of UP. Okay? Now, what are the characteristic feature, or like if you observe the Khajuraho group of temples, slender and tall figures, intricate lines, like there are intricate designs. I'll give you a very small example. Okay, Khajuraho group of temple. Suppose a lady has been depicted on the walls of a temple, and if that lady, she is wearing an anklet, or if that lady is wearing a bangle, you can easily observe the designs that have been made on these bangles and the anklets. So designs are quite intricate. Apart from this, aquatic animals, birds have also been depicted. Third important thing, god, goddesses, and apsaras have been also depicted. There are many erotic images as well as a part of Khajuraho group of temples. The finest example of this is Kandariya Mahadev temple, Lakshman temple. Apart from this, you can also see the scenes from Hindu epics and Jain epics as well. Correct? So this is nothing but the temple architecture, precisely Nagara style of architecture. So here you had to explain Nagara style of architecture prevalent during the time of Chandelas. Okay, like the environment specifically around the region of Bundelkhand, it also has a reflection in the architecture at that time. The temple, they look like a mountain structure, since the region of Jeja Bhukti is surrounded by lush green meadows and the mountains. So the structure of temple is also in that manner. So here you had to explain the basic components of Nagara style of architecture with more specifically emphasis on Chandelas, like slender and tall figures, intricate designs, intricate lines, god, goddesses, apsaras, aquatic animals that have been depicted. Okay, this is nothing but the third question here, precisely from art and culture. Is it clear, my friends? Any question, any query, any doubt? Please feel free to ask. Hope it is clear. I have also told you one thing in the past session. Just go and read about the differences between Nagara school of architecture and Dravida school of architecture. I had given you the example of Lakundi group of temples in Karnataka and the Ram Mandir. So probability is that there could be a question on temple architecture. And this is what? Okay, my friends, let's move ahead. Just a second. The question is question number 11. Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's writings and efforts of social reforms touch the issues of all the subaltern classes. Okay. This is a question precisely related to Renaissance or socio-religious reform movements, and precisely the socio-religious reform movements in the western part of India. Okay. Small example again. Renaissance basically means revival or rebirth. Revival or rebirth of what? Ideas. Correct? Like specifically, Rajaram Mohan Roy is referred as pioneer of Renaissance. He's also called as a bridge between the past and the future, bridge between the East and the West. And he believed that before getting rid of Britishers, we need to get rid of our rudimentary thoughts and traditions. Because there are so many rudimentary things that are holding our society backwards. Indian society at that time was being plagued by different social evils. Rigid caste system, sati system, child marriage, parda system, and so on. So the Renaissance movement actually began from the region of Bengal. Correct? Hence, Indian Renaissance is also referred as what we say Bengal Renaissance. Why? Because it started from the region of East. Later on, it became a pan-India movement. In western part of India, specifically, Jyotiba Phule ji and Savitribai Phule ji played a very major role precisely in women's education. I had taken a small session previously in modern India, wherein we had studied about the role of Jyotiba Phule and how Jyotiba Phule was inspired for the social-religious reform movements. We had studied that in quite depth and detail. Like Jyotiba Phule, he was born in a Mali community. Like he was born around the region of Satara in Maharashtra. After his marriage to Savitribai Phule, he migrated to the region of Pune. Apart from studying, he also used to sell flowers. And at that time, once upon a time, he was being invited to a wedding of his Brahmin friend. And here he faced a caste discrimination. After that, he was quite inspired by a book called as Rights of a Man, written by Thomas Paine. And now, what happened? Here he got involved into many socio-religious reforms. First of all, he started Satya Shodhak Samaj. Okay. He wrote two important books, Ghulamgiri and Sarvajanik Satya Dharma Pustak. Savitribai Phule ji, she started the first girls' school for women in the region of Pune. So here the philosophical contributions of the socio-religious reformer Jyotiba Phule has been asked. So you have to highlight that. Okay. As a part of the discussion, 2 days back, I have given you the example of the Arya Samaj founder, Swami Dayanand Saraswati ji or Mool Shankar. And I told you, you can expect a question on Arya Samaj or socio-religious reform movements. So here, Mahatma Jyotirao Phule's, there was a question. Okay. The last thing that I've told you, you can expect a question on French Revolution, American Revolution, comparison of Indian feudalism and European feudalism. Okay, guys, I'm not just bluntly saying this. You can, what we say, watch the video that I've taken 2 days back. Okay, so specifically speaking, just hold on. If you go through that video, approximately around 46 minutes, it's a 48-minute video. On 46th minute, I've told you what key topics that you need to focus on world history. There are many topics: unification of Germany, unification of Italy, Industrial Revolution, Cold War era. I had told you to focus on 5 important topics before going into your mains examination. The first one was feudalism, comparison of Indian feudalism and European feudalism. Second topic that I've told you to focus was American Revolution. The third topic that I told you was the French Revolution. You can expect a question from French Revolution and its impact. Fourth topic, I have told you World War I and World War II. And see what? UPSC has asked a question. French Revolution has enduring relevance to the contemporary world. Explain in 250 words. So here, what do you need to explain? Let's throw light on these concepts. Now, first of all, why did French Revolution took place? I'll give you a very small example and I'll explain this concept with the help of a very small example. Like, this is nothing but distribution of French society on the eve of French Revolution. So, 1% were clergymen or the people associated with the church. Okay? Second. 1% were the people associated with the church. 2% were specifically the people associated with nobility. And 97% were the commoners. In very simple words, as a part of the French society, 3% population was of the nobility and the people associated with the church or the offices of the church. And 97% of them were commoners. These 3% of the people had access to 80% of the resources, 80% of the land and property. On the other hand, these 97% had access to 20% of the resources and property. Plus, although these 3% had access to 80%, but still they were exempted from payment of taxes. They did not have to pay a single penny as a tax. Correct? And the entire tax burden, it fell on the shoulder of the commoners, the third estate. Obviously, some or the other day, these people are going to revolt. And this culminated in the form of French Revolution. Correct? So everyone knows about this French Revolution, like who are Girondists, who are Constitutionalists, who are Jacobians, what is Reign of Terror by Robespierre. Correct? Everything. Now, what was the impact of the French Revolution? Even today, its principles are being followed. First thing, it promoted the feeling of nationalism. Nationalism basically means feeling of belongingness towards one's country. Spread of democratic ideals. Okay? A very simple example. Today also we follow a social contract theory. What is social contract theory? I'll give you a very small example. Okay? As a part of social contract theory, for example, we people do not sit in Lok Sabha and Rajya Sabha and make the rules and regulations for the country. What do? We choose our representatives. Isn't that so? We choose our MPs and MLAs who make rules and regulations for us on our behalf. So our will of making rules and regulation has been transferred to these elected representatives. Correct? So we choose them. In very simple words, my friends, you might have heard about this. Democratic ethos. Government of the people, by the people, and for the people. Correct? So this is nothing but social contract theory. So democratic ideals were also one of the outputs of the French Revolution. Modern political ideologies, republicanism, liberty, equality, fraternity, free thinking. Okay? Now, I'll give you a very small example. I'll give you two examples here. First example, you might have heard about as a part of Renaissance, Young Bengal movement. Correct? Henry Vivian Derizou played a very major role in Young Bengal movement. And Henry Vivian, he is also considered as the first nationalist poet of India. He was inspired from the French revolutions and the principles or the outcomes of French Revolution, such as liberty, equality, free thinking. True? So it gave birth to political ideologies. Second thing, republicanism. Like India is a truly republic country. How? Precisely speaking, the heads of the country are directly or indirectly chosen by the people of India. Example, we choose the MPs and MLAs, and the President of India is being chosen indirectly by the people of India. How? These MPs and MLAs choose the President of India. So these are nothing but modern political ideologies. Social equity, global economic impact. Now, after French Revolution, there was end of monarchy and end of feudalism in the region of Europe. So what is feudalism? Excuse me. The word feudalism has been derived from the word fief. And fief basically means land. It is nothing but conditional ownership of the land. Monarchical system got ended. Feudalism got ended. And it gave birth to capitalism. Okay? So these are the significant outcomes of the French Revolution. So my friends, specifically speaking, the paper, precisely from the perspective of history, was not tough at all. It was a moderate paper. If you have read it properly, if you had covered the different aspect, I have again told you previously, like previously Praveen sir also told you, that if you have watched my video 2 days back, at least 3 questions you could have attempted. I had told you to reach the French Revolution, American Revolution, World War I and II. And there was a question on French Revolution. So here, the total, like the weightage of history was 75 marks. 10 marks each, 3 questions related to art and culture. True? Apart from this, there was one question from world history. Then there was one question from modern Indian history. Yes, we did expected one question from the Gandhian movement, which UPSC usually asks, but this year it did not ask a question on that. So totally there were 5 questions from the entire section of the history. Post-independent India, there was one question. So my friends, is it clear how to attempt these questions? Did you understand things? Please let me know. Do you have any kind of query, question, or doubt? Please feel free to ask. Is it clear, my friends? Yes, guys? Okay. So now I will hand over it to Praveen sir, who will throw light on the questions related to post-independent India. Okay, my friends? And after that, we'll have Soumya ma'am, who will focus or throw light on the different aspects of Indian society and social issues, wherein there were 5 to 6 questions. And then Randhir sir, he will throw light on the different aspects of the questions related to geography, precisely geomorphology. Okay, guys, with this, I'll stop my words and hand over the mic to Praveen sir. Praveen sir, please.
Thank you, sir. So, guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed the discussion with Alok sir with regard to the subject of history. And yes, it was really mesmerizing as well, as I was also there in the live session. So here we are up with the next one. That is question number 12. One question what we have got with us is with regard to the subject that is known as PIC, that is post-independence consolidation, right? So this is what question number 12, okay? So what exactly the question is? Trace India's consolidation. Trace India's consolidation post-independence with regard to polity, education, economy, and international relations. Right? So we have to talk about the different aspects as in the polity, education, economy, as well as the international relations. Let's begin with, well, these two terms, polity and economy, they are directly related to each other, directly proportional to each other, not indirectly, directly proportional to each other. Let's say the biggest trouble for our country in those eras, in those days, what we say means we were the golden bird, right? We were the golden bird before the British rule. But what happened, what we have seen, as stated by the great moderate leader he was, Dadabhai Nauroji, in his book, The Wealth of Nations, where he mentioned the drain of wealth theory and how whole of India's wealth was drained through the Western Asian countries and reached to Europe by these British, right? So obviously the golden bird lost its wings, but yes, didn't lost its hopes. So with the dilapidated economy, most uneducated or most illiterated, what we say, masses, no agriculture, no industry, no proper economy. We were struggling a lot with each and every parameter, right? And so it was important for us to balance polity with economy, right? Or economy with polity. So the biggest trouble was, like, for example, the zamindari system and the presence of the princess, that is the kings, basically. So in order to go ahead and implement the principles that is, for example, mentioned under Article 39, Clause B and Clause C, we went ahead and we made Article 31, capital C, right? That will be giving the enforceable effect to Article 39, Clause B and Clause C, as in simply talking about equal distribution of resources, right? Equal distribution of resources. And the next one, that is Clause C, no concentration of wealth. So the moment we implemented our constitution, we had the First Amendment Act, the First Constitutional Amendment Act of 1951, where we got Article 31 capital A as well as Article 31 capital B, where we talked about land acquisition, which was a fundamental right at that time, right? So that was the next challenge to anyhow abolish this virus, eliminate this virus that is known as the Zamindari system. So in order to curb this, the government of India or even the Constituent Assembly, they both tried their best implementing the principles like Article 18. Apart from that, going ahead with the principles like Article 41, implementing the provisions of Article 21, right? So Zamindari system was to be abolished and the government tried its best, and we have got the cases related to it. Like, for example, the case of Golaknath. Golaknath versus State of Punjab. Right, we had this case, 1967, directly targeting the Zamindari system. Government introduced Article 31 capital B and placed it under Schedule 9. Right, so that we can acquire the land and use it for the public purposes. Then this is directly polity and economy directly related to each other. Then when we talk about education, okay, so education, if you are able to mention just two, the first one was Radha Krishnan Committee. We made it in 1948. And another one was the Kothari Committee. Okay, 1967. So these were the two systems or two committees that specifically focused on education. And you would be surprised to know, this is something which is not very old thing. It's in current affairs as well. When we talk about NEP, the National Education Policy of 2020, it is talking about the three-language formula. If you think this three-language formula is new, no, that's not new. It's old. First time we talked about the three-language formula in the Kothari Committee of 1967, right? And then this was where? Focusing on education. Simply speaking, education as in providing the understanding to the masses, the basic level of literacy, the advanced level of education, every single thing, from language to the customs, to science and technology, to literature, to humanities, to the studies of finance and commerce. It was important for us to do this. And hence we did. And next thing, the chapter, that is the topic of AYA, that is international relations. So obviously, we were the founding member of this that is known as Non-Alignment Movement, NAM. We participated 1955, the Bandung Conference. We said no, literally no to CTBT, that is Comprehensive Test Ban Treaty, also known as Nuclear Test Ban Treaty, as well as Nuclear Non-Proliferation Treaty. We said no, we ain't going to participate in any of these. We need our defense with ourselves. The moment we gained independence from the Eastern Front, okay, it was the line of actual control with China. Considering the areas of Tibet, we had the very first Sino-Indian War, right? So on the Eastern Front, we lost a good friend in the name of China in 1962. On the Western Front, starting with 1948, 1965, 1971, 1999. Yes, the wars with not so good friendly neighborhood, Pakistan, right? And then we have to also depend a lot on the imports, as considering the correlation between polity economy. and international relations. We were heavily dependent on what? On imports. So, like for example, America's PL 480 program. We were importing the food grains through the 480 program. We were also the beneficiary of the multiple international financial institutions like the World Bank and the IMF, right? And then the internal issues that were also faced, like the uh, issues like Naxalism, okay, extremism, as well as, yes, the multiple corruption scandals was also faced by us. So there were multiple things where we were, troubled. It was very important for the government to look forward in a very profound way, in a very, imperative manner, in a very immaculate manner, so that we don't go ahead and dry ourselves, okay? And just we were focusing on each and every parameter, like starting with the planning commission, the third 5-year plan, which actually focused on absolutely on agriculture. And then we realized, no, it's not time for us to focus absolutely on agriculture, right? Okay. Uh, yeah, third, the three language policy, that's correct. Berosh, Hindi, English, and one regional language. Right. So these were the things we got through the Kothari committee and so on. And then considering the works of the government, so they were doing their best as well. Yes, in the meantime, we had got seen another Congress split, that is Congress P and Congress O, sorry, Congress O and Congress R, right? So there was too much of internal disturbances, no doubt. We got the Keshwananda Bharati case, through which we got the next one, that is the 42nd Constitutional Amendment Act. Okay. And then the 44th Amendment, the eras of emergency, and then so on. Right. The assassination of Indira Gandhi and Rajiv Gandhi. Then in the international dimensions, we have got the Sri Lankan Civil War, in which India participated. We gave the freedom, okay, or we supported the freedom movement of, once again, not so friendly neighborhood, Bangladesh. Okay, we provided support to Myanmar, the erstwhile Burma, and also we provided support to Afghanistan as well, including Tibet, the issues of Dalai Lama. So obviously, multiple facets there were, multiple dimensions there were present for us. Okay, so we just went ahead and it was just the simple question where you have to mention all of these events. No theory, no nothing. Okay, just you had to mention the facts, that what happened in polity, what happened in economy, what happened in international relations, how the education system was taken up ahead. That's it. The question was as simple as it could be. Okay, guys. So with this, this was the only question with regard to the post-independence era of our country. Okay, and now with this, I would like to call on the stage now. This time, it's Soumya ma'am who shall be going ahead with the topics of social issues. Okay, so Soumya ma'am, it's over to you now. Guys, please hold on for a minute. Soumya ma'am is joining us. So, guys, there is slight delay. Yeah, ma'am is here. Okay, so ma'am, it's over, up to you.
A very good afternoon. Thank you, sir. And a very warm welcome, everyone, to Study IQ English. So today, as we all know, was the big day again, as we had the GS Paper 1 2025 for UPSC Mains. And as sir has mentioned already, the paper, fortunately, was not a challenging one. So giving a very, very personal as well as an experiential opinion on the paper, this was somewhere between moderate to easy. As we have seen, majority of the questions were simple. Apart from that, they were also quite direct. So for those who have been engaging with the current affairs through newspapers, those who have prepared the big fours, that's your history, economics, polity, and geography, would have seen that the questions are very, very direct on point. That's the good part about the exam. Now, coming back to the social issues segment, here I would say the difficulty level was moderate. Not because the paper itself was difficult, but yes, these questions posed a very new kind of challenge. Now, the questions here, despite being simple, had a twist to them. Most of them were based on government schemes. Most of them were based on government welfare policies, and yet all of them demanded some illustration, some example from Indian society. That is something we have seen. Okay, so I will show you all the 5 questions that we had today from social issues segment in GS paper 1. And not only will I guide you regarding how to solve these questions, what was the demand of the question, but also I think it's a great eye opener for everyone, for all the aspirants, that not only do we need to be prepared with the static content of GS paper 1 society, but also we need to constantly be updated about the current affairs. Now, you believe me or not, today itself in the Hindu analysis, I have covered 2 issues which are reflecting in this paper. So, which means a regular newspaper analysis, a thorough grasp of current affairs is what's needed to solve at least the social issue dimension of this paper. So, now let me take you to the questions of social issues for the day. If this is your paper with 20 questions, then these broadly on your screen were the 5 Indian society topics for the day. As you can see, about 2 society questions were short questions, 10 marks, 150-word questions, whereas 3 of them are the lengthier ones. These need about 250 words answer each. As I said, talking on a level of difficulty, the short questions are very easy this time. They are a no-brainer. You can apply your common sense also and answer these questions. All you needed was a thorough grasp of current affairs, that's it. Talking about the lengthier questions, yes, these did demand a little bit of topic clarity. So let's get going with the agenda. The first question from Indian society segment was, how does the smart city in India address the issues of urban poverty and distributive justice? A 150 words question. Let's see what we could have done here. As I say each time, whenever we are discussing a GS question, begin by identifying the keywords of the question. If you look at the question thoroughly, you will see that here the main demand is smart city itself. Again, a very, very age-old concept introduced in India back in 2015 by the government. You all must be aware of the smart city mission. Even if you do not know all the features of the mission, you need to understand what is the concept of smart city. Then the question says, does this address? Address means mitigate, solve, try to tackle the issues. The very question, social issue, economic issue, political issue. The word issue means some problem. Because paper 1, GS, the topic itself is Indian society and social issues. So any problem that is present in Indian society, ranging from poverty to unemployment, to caste discrimination, to gender divide, all these are categorized as issues. Therefore, we are saying that does the smart city solution in India solve the problem of urban poverty and distributive justice? Let's break down the keywords quickly. By poverty, we mean deprivation. Multiple times I have been telling my students that now we understand poverty as multidimensional poverty, which means a much larger concept than purely income deprivation. This is an all-round deprivation. Similarly, talking of distributive justice, we know that right since the times of 1940, India has committed to the plan, 1944 Bombay Plan. When India committed to have the principle of democratic socialism. It means social economic distributive justice, a kind of society which believes in equality among people. The resources of the society need to be distributed among various segments equally, including the vulnerable people. So this is the demand of the question. I think it's a quite direct question. We can start this answer by introducing the keywords itself. Please let the examiner know, what do you understand by smart city in India? Now, smart city is a kind of urban planning which is using information communication technologies, artificial intelligence driven systems, and IoT, Internet of Things, computerization and technology to collect data from various issues in the city regarding traffic problem, water logging problem, the problem of urban congestion, the problem of road breaking down, the problem of infrastructural collapse. All these data are accomplished, they are gathered, and after that, sustainable policies are made to solve these problems by using Internet of Things, artificial intelligence, and other kind of technologies. This is called a smart city, a city which believes in using technology to solve its problems. Then please talk about how did this concept came in India. For a very long time, Indian society was trying and experimenting urban renovation. We had the JNNURM, we had the Amrut Mission, we had so many different urbanization schemes in India just to promote a better quality of urban life for people. But it was only in 2015 that the government experimented with a smart city mission, the SCM mission. The target was to create new satellite cities. Cities which had technology right from traffic signals to tracking the construction and development of road capacity, to mitigating the problem of repeated urban flooding, to creating parks and aesthetic spaces in the city. In fact, if you remember, back in 2020, the government also tried to talk about the Sponge City mission, inspired by China, a city which allows for water conservation by making roads more absorbent to water, by creating rooftop garden spaces, by encouraging green rainwater harvesting. All this just to improve the quality of urban life. Well, this is called smart city. But does it solve the problem of poverty in cities and distributive justice? Although poverty is a pan-India concept, but this question talks about urban poverty. So let's understand that whenever we mention urban poverty, we are referring to the slum-dwelling population in our cities. We know that Dharavi in Mumbai happens to be the largest Asian slums. And you'd be surprised to know that across all metropolitan cities in India, there is always about 2 to 3% population that still lives in ghettos, slums, shanty settlements, illegal, unauthorized homes which are not made up of any concrete material. They do not have sanitation, they do not have a fixed water supply, and they lack walking, breathing, living space for people. Now, these are the congested places where mostly urban poor live. These urban poor are typically coming from those who have migrated from village to the city. These are the workers of the informal sector in India. Migrant workers, construction workers, circular migrants who work for agriculture and construction. Other people like those who work for the GIG sector, those who work in platform apps. Now, if these are the people who live in lower income group homes and slums, yes, Smart City Mission should have taken care of them. Because by smart city, we should also make sure that every resident of Indian city has this access of a smart infrastructure. But did that happen? It did not happen. That's what we need to talk about. That ideally a smart city program is meant to address better urban development, inclusive urban development through technology infrastructure and e-governance programs. But in reality, that sadly has not happened in India. But the question is not asking why it did not happen. The question is not asking how should we make that happen. It is a short question. Let's come to the point. It says how does, which means in which way can a smart city program solve the problem of urban poverty? So let's see how it can do that. The biggest thing is it can do that by making sure that there is a new concept introduced in urban planning named as in situ urban development. Now, what is the meaning of in situ urban development? The word in situ means within the same area, without changing the place. By in situ development, we are trying to say that do not plan to remove the slums. The whole big idea of removing the slums, raising them to the ground, asking people to relocate is a faulty strategy. There is limited urban space and the slum dwelling population has limited resources. The government under PM Awas Yojana has not able to provide sufficient living space for these people. So where will they go? Therefore comes the concept of in situ development. The perfect smart city planning should have taken care of in situ development, which means do not make people leave. You enhance the quality of slum life. Provide some kind of sanitation facility. Provide some kind of solid regular electricity supply. Experiment with solar energy plants and provide electricity to these areas. Make sure there are regular screenings. Make sure they have access to basic primary health care and education for their children without making them relocated. That's the beauty of in situ development. A smart city plan should have done that. We should have used ICT, IoT, and artificial intelligence to improve the quality of slum life rather than having an age-old obsolete plan like PM Awas Yojana where you are expecting people to relocate completely. Now that's not possible to happen. So therefore, we could have learned examples from cities like Odisha, Bhubaneswar, where socially smart Bhubaneswar initiative was taken with the help of United Nations, for Population Fund, United Nations UNFPA, that focused on youth development, which focused on providing the slum dwelling people with vocational skills to improve their incomes. We talk about PM Vishwakarma scheme, initiated in 2021, which aimed at training the poor, unskilled Indian youth into some kind of business activity, into traditional handicrafts and various artisanship. Now, that's a wonderful idea of making them self-sufficient. Similarly, we talk about Indore, one of the cleanest cities in India. It is also very well known for initiating a smart public transportation system, which is specially meant for the low-income groups. Now, this is what we call a smart city solution. You don't want to remove the people who are facing deprivation. You want to use smart internet technology and improve their life wherever they are living. This is what should smart city, this is exactly what was expected of the smart city mission. So you talk about these two examples. Now make sure give as many relevant current affairs in your answers as you can. For a 10 marks question, give at least 2 examples from current events. Like I just spoke about Bhubaneswar and Indore. This ensures the examiner that you are aware of the recent trends that are happening in Indian society. Also, it substantiates your answers. It proves your point. Similarly, we can talk about wonderful schemes like PM Swanidhi scheme. Again, the purpose was to enhance income security for the street vendors. We know that street vendors, people selling food, small toys, goods and items, on the roadside, again, are a major segment of informal Indian economy. Most of these are rural migrants into urban cities. Now, these people were taken care of under PM Swanidhi by giving them some small scale loan to enhance their work, by giving them training into activities like packaging, storing, and hygienically dealing with their products so that people come and buy these products. So this is exactly the need of the hour because this gives them inclusion. We don't have to remove anyone. We have to include them through smart missions. Now, last but not the least, we often speak about schemes like Pradhan Mantri Awas Yojana Urban. We talk about Delhi Street Vendors Act 2014. They often have promised us formal rights, the right to have a small space on the road, the right to do their business without being troubled by the police every day. Now, all these are good on paper, but there is a huge gap here. Most of these schemes do not see any implementation. Correct. So rather than just having these schemes, it is better to have an online portal that is driven by artificial intelligence and machine learning models. How will this help? Machine learning model and AI being used to create welfare schemes has the advantage of giving us data. The data keeps getting updated. For any eviction or for any atrocity that takes place against a street vendor or a slum dweller, we should have an online database available so that based on this data, the government can take up future actions too. This is the need of the hour. And why is this the need of the hour? Because if you remember, long back, that is in 2016, there was a summit that took place named as the United Nations Habitat. This had taken place during the 2016 Ecuador summit in a place called Quito. This is known as Habitat 3 Summit, led by UN Habitat. What was the purpose? United Nations decided to adopt a plan called as the right to city. The right to city is a basic humanitarian universal right that every individual in the world should have. Every person who lives in an urbanized area. Say, for example, you might question, what do you even mean by an urban area? Now, this goes back to our constitution. Under the 74th Amendment Act, there are proper protocols that what is a city and what is a village. We identify it through many reasons. For example, a city would be a place where more than 75% people are into non-agricultural activities. We identify it on the basis of number of people per square kilometer population. That's population density. We identify a city through the presence of municipal corporations, municipal boards, cantonments, and all of that. There are criterias. But once an individual is recognized to be a citizen of an urban area, a city or a town, it is mandatory that the person should get the UN right to the city. It is, in fact, a global fundamental right. So, which also means that every city resident has an equal right, irrespective of their gender, race, religion, class, to use public infrastructure of the city, to have unstoppable access to urban areas. Now, this also includes the transgender population. Lot many times they have been facing discrimination, but a smart city mission is ideally a mission that should take care not just of the urban poor, the slum dwellers, but also to every vulnerable group in the city, whether it's women's safety, whether it's transgender safety. So if you begin the question by defining all the keywords about smart city, about how India started the smart city mission in 2015, you must also talk about how in 2021, many new schemes came in the picture, such as the PM Amrut scheme, such as the new smart city mission, such as Hruday scheme. The purpose of the scheme was to revitalize the urban spaces, to create better satellite cities which can give better lifestyle, better living standard, better employment to people. So this is the need of the question. How can a smart city do that? This is the way a smart city should do that. The whole purpose is to use technology to change the lives of those who are actually the poor. And once you do that, that's when you are doing distributive justice. Because already the rich and the wealthy have the advantage of all city infrastructure. It's all about percolating it down to the slum dwelling segment. These are the urban poor. A very good thing we could mention in the question is the strategy of self-help group. Now, long back when the government had introduced the National Rural Livelihoods Mission in India, the purpose was to spread employment opportunities through self-help group. And it was very successful. After that, the government introduced the same model in NLURM, National Urban Livelihood Missions, NULRM. The purpose was to now create self-help groups in the cities also, so that people in the city, the urban poor, can come together and start working for their employment, business, financing methods. All that is a wonderful, again, initiative to make sure that these poor people take advantage of all smart technologies that we are seeing around us. Ultimately, smart city is to revitalize the urban space, but it can only do distributive justice if it reaches the person on the ground. That's the demand of the question. Make sure you write about government schemes. Make sure you talk about the Smart City Mission 2015. Do add current examples that adds to your marks in the question paper. Now, the second question from social issues was, this is the question number 10th. It says, do you think globalization results in only an aggressive consumer culture? So please read the question carefully. A lot of students make this mistake that in the prelims, they read a question at least 5 times. In the mains, they read it just once and they think they know the answer. Sometimes it can be a delusion. In the prelims, intuition works better. If you read the question once and you think you know it, 80% chance you will notice that, yes, you will know it. But in the mains, it's not like that. It's pretty counterintuitive. In the mains, if you read a question once and you think it's a comfortable question for you, please read again. There are always hidden keywords which you are missing in the first go. Try to read one question at least twice properly. This question is saying globalization. Does it result only? The word only is adding a twist here. Does globalization only create an aggressive consumer culture? So how do we start for this 150 words, 10 marks question? Now, I have seen a lot of students worried about the word limit. They say that, ma'am, we know the answer, but we really get nervous about the word limit. I am able to write, but I write too lengthy. See, that comes only by practice. It doesn't come just by looking at the question or brainstorming about it. But one thing, let me ensure you, is that this 150 words is always an upper limit. Kindly don't worry and imagine that my answer has to be 145 to 150. It's not like that. UPSC is a quality oriented exam. Focus on the quality of the answer that you're giving. Make sure you are doing justice to every point asked in the question. There is no problem if your answer ends at 120 words. Absolutely no problem. Making sure that you have covered all the points. A 150 should be the upper limit, which means even if you go up till 200, it is okay. There is nothing to worry. You won't lose marks here. Try not to go beyond that. And that comes by practice. Back to the question. Every time you write a mains answer, please make sure in your mind that you have to divide the whole answer into at least introduction, body, and some kind of conclusion. The IBC format is for the essay, but it's also for the mains answers. Now here, in case you are short on time, in case you think you cannot conclude properly, all right, that's fine. But at least introduction and body should stand out very clearly. And in every introduction in the UPSC mains, whether it's paper 1, 2, 3, 4, or optional, please begin by defining the keywords in the question. You have to give some definition of the keyword. If you remember a definition given by a proper institution like United Nations, Niti Aayog, Indian government, WHO, very good. Do quote that definition. If you want to start with the data, for example, the data on globalization, if you have it, if you remember it, very good. Do write it. Now, in case you don't remember, nothing to worry. Try to interpret the keyword and then define it as briefly as possible, max in 1 or 2 lines. Here the keywords are globalization and the keywords are consumer culture. Let's create a link now. We all know what is globalization. It is a multi-dimensional process. Please talk about it. Multi-dimensional because it is not only about economic integration between different countries and economies of the world, like we are seeing today, Shanghai Cooperation Organization, European Union, Quad, ASEAN, that's one thing. Of course, it is also about cultural integration. Yes, it is about geographical integration, all of this. Geographical integration through consistent communication and travel between the countries. Cultural integration through various summits, various cultural exchanges that various countries experience. Foreign guests coming to our Republic Day parade. That's culture integration. There is political integration involved too. So yes, it is a very multi-dimensional process. Ultimately, the meaning of globalization is an integration among various economies and societies across the world. Today, the process has become much faster owing to transformation in the ICT domain, owing to quick networking, owing to mobile data revolutions, owing to internet communication technology, information communication technologies. People are not only being spatially integrated, geographically integrated, but also they are getting virtually integrated. That's globalization for you. Now, we all know globalization is not a new process. Back during the times of Indus Valley civilization also, we had a decent trade with Mesopotamian and Egyptian cultures. So you can write that globalization is not a new process. But it's true that after the 1990s, globalization has become a very expedited process. It's a very quick process now, obviously owing to internet and better communication. Once we are done with globalization, quickly come to consumer culture. Consumer culture is a trend where people are spending their disposable income on purchasing various commodities, goods, and services just to improve their quality of life. While spending money on necessity has been a part of any market driven economy. But ever since India experienced liberalization, privatization, globalization back in 1991, and ever since the consumer culture caught up in India, owing to more Western influence, owing to more social media culture, owing to Amazon, owing to various eBay, various online commerce platforms being reaching our doorstep. Yes, people are becoming more consumeristic. Someone who's consumeristic spends too much money on consuming necessities, luxuries, and comforts, all of that. Naturally, one reason is a rise in middle class across the world. Yes, the middle class population has increased, which means there is more purchasing power that people have. There is more disposable income that people have. When people have that income, people will spend that money. Correct? That is consumer culture. It's a short answer. Once we define both the keywords in the question, quickly end your introduction by creating a link between them. So there are three things you need to do in introduction of any question. One, define the keyword. Second, link them together. Yes, this economic social globalization has led to much faster consumer culture. Now let's come to the body and answer the question, why has it happened? And when we say why, let's give examples how it has happened. Now, this is the wonderful formula for writing your answers in GS papers. In the introduction, define the keywords, link them together. In the body, answer two questions. How, why, and when. And you are absolutely done. Coming to the body now. Why has this phenomena been happening? Why has consumer culture increased after globalization? Obviously, one clear thing is that people have more access to global markets now. Sitting in my house, I can purchase anything from across the world, from cosmetic products to medication, licensed medication, to clothing, to jewelry, to whatever is on my palate. Sitting in my house, I can order food, perishable food from all across the my any kind of cuisine I can choose for, and non-perishable items I can import from anywhere I want to. Similarly, this trend of sitting home and ordering, this trend of accessing global markets for jewelry, clothing, footwear, and electronic goods is only because of better advertising and digital marketing. I know that even when I am not active on social media, the platforms, the e-commerce websites, they are constantly reaching out to me through advertising, through message blast, through email blast. There is no escape for me, right? So therefore, I am being forewalled into the culture of consumerism. It has intensified in the urban middle class more. You might wonder why. One thing is, yes, because they have more access to internet. They have a faster access to data internet. Third thing is they are more in contact with the corporate culture. They are more influenced by the Western lifestyle. They travel to other countries much more. So naturally, they will have the desire to upgrade their living standard to match the other cultures too. Then, with more money comes the desire to go for fancy diets and fancy foods and fancy clothing. Similarly, there is a rise of fast fashion. Now, you may often hear that today one of the biggest problems of waste generation is also related to the quick, fast fashion. People are buying clothes, using them for just about few months or few weeks and discarding them. Now, social media, yes, it has a role to play here because people want validation of their pictures and videos on social media. They don't want to repeat the same clothes. Similarly, there is a trend of eating more processed fast food. Now, this is westernization. At the same time, e-commerce purchases, again, this is a proof here. Now, without offending anybody, you can mention that some chains like Amazon, some chains like eBay, these have a very high sales coming right from India itself. The reason is the desire for this kind of consumerism. Now, let's have a few examples. Look at Amazon and Flipkart, for example. Now, just during their Diwali sale, their New Year sale, and the Christmas sale, they celebrate the big billion days. It is kind of encouraging a consumer with money to actually buy more by creating a phenomena called FOMO, the fear of missing out. I think the Gen Zs will relate very well to this. That I may miss out on the discount if I don't buy the product right now. Similarly, like in 2023, the festive e-commerce sales crossed 90,000 rupees crore. Can you imagine? Driven by purchase of smartphone, electronic goods, fashion, and home appliances. Similarly, Apple iPhone sales in India in 2023 had already hit a record number. So these are few examples, and you should give examples. As I said, the body of the answer should address three things: why, how, and when. Remember this formula, WHW. But whenever you mention something, try to give a data here. See, this is not essay. This is a GS answer. It has to be factual. So give data, give examples from current events. If you remember the statistics, please write them. That's even better. And there is no place better for getting this data than the daily newspaper analysis. Trust me, that's the one way you can find all the data and current affairs in one place. Write about that. Then please talk about how India's credit card transactions crossed rupees 1.5 lakh crore per month just in 2025. Again, that's unusual high number. Easy EMI option is again one trap in which smart business companies are trapping the consumers in a debt trap. Spend, buy high-end luxury products, spend on eating, spend on movies, spend on gadgets. Why? Because you have a credit card. It doesn't matter even if it's a debt, but that's the fashion of, that's the financial fashion of the day. Similarly, credit card transactions crossed rupees 1.5 lakh crore per month in 2024. So look at this data. It talks about how globalization through advertising, through online media, digital marketing, through personal messages on phones, by collecting the consumer data, sharing the data across national boundaries, by being influenced by the images on social media, by comparison, entertainment, all that has resulted in this process where middle class people, even the low middle class income people, are spending on non-essential goods like high-end luxury products only because they have an option of paying an EMI. So yes, definitely. Alongside creating a fast consumer culture, a lot of people say it is also about erosion of India's own cultural traditional ethos. In a way, yes, it is, because we are now driven more by global lifestyle than our own local lifestyles, and that's how globalization really penetrates our mind. You won't believe if I say something here. Sometimes this kind of culture is also known as soft imperialism. Why is it known as soft imperialism? Because The countries like US, various nations in Europe, they influence us to change our lifestyle and our consumption patterns, but not by forcing us, by encouraging us. So this is soft imperialism. We are again becoming a colony, maybe not political, but yes, a cultural colony of the Western countries. That's what you need to write here. Please give examples. Now, if you can conclude, you should always give a very brief conclusion. A brief conclusion, say about maximum 2 lines, in which you just kind of summarize your body of the answer. You just say that thus or therefore, this is the manner, these are the multiple diverse ways in which globalization has impacted Indian consumption culture across various classes in society, particularly the urban middle class. That is more represented in the formal sector of the economy, corporate houses, business houses, and so on. And that's all. Okay, that's an easy question. Now jump on to the next question for the day. This also is quite similar to the previous question. Now, I am surprised how they are not only were the questions this time easy, but also many of them were repetitive. Like, look at this one in front of you. This is a lengthy one. It's a 250 words question. It says, how do you account for? What do we mean by that? How do you explain? Don't fall for catchy keywords. Sometimes the question may be very easy, but the way they format the question can kind of confuse the students. Don't fall for that trap. Always try to decode and simplify the question for you. How do you account for? How do you explain? What reason do you give for growing fast food industries, given that there are increased health concerns in modern society? And illustrate your answer with Indian experience. Now, the word illustrate, now be very careful about question tags. Very important as you start preparing for your mains. Question tags can make a difference to the marks that you score. The word illustrate means give examples to prove your point. Another word that UPSC uses for illustrate is substantiate. So whether it is substantiate, whether it is illustrate, it's the same thing. Very good afternoon, Rishi, Neha, Sudesh, Sakshi, Nagulan. Illustrate, substantiate only means give example. So please give examples. Very easy question because you need to give current affairs again. And you know, if you're following the newspapers, you have the current affairs with you. Use them here in your answer. Substantiate your answer with India's reality today. And what is the question? What reason do you give? How do you explain that people are eating fast food? So much fast food, and because of that, there are increased health risks also. Naturally, we all know that fast food that is rich in trans fatty acids, in poor quality oil, in high amounts of carbohydrates and sugar, completely deprived of fiber or any kind of micronutrient, empty calorie consumption, plus the risk of eating preservative, additional coloring, food additives. Where will this take the health of people who consume it on a regular basis? This reminds me of a discussion I had in the Hindu just few weeks before. In the Hindu New Delhi edition, there was an article about MSG, a very popular ingredient used in Chinese food in India and in various other countries. The article was debating how in India, MSG is considered to be a carcinogen, an ingredient that can cause cancers and other serious illnesses among those who eat it. And yet, unfortunately, MSG traces are found even in something as simple as infant food materials. Imagine. Correct? So labeling is very misleading when it comes to processed foods in India. One thing is that labels themselves are misleading. Another thing is people are very, very naive. They don't know how to interpret these food labels, which leads to quick consumption of fast food. Now, what is fast food? Yes, it is junk, but what is fast food? It's fast because it's a quick fix solution. Doesn't it relate to the problem of Indian modern lifestyle? I mean, people in urban areas are usually living in nuclear families where all the adult members of the family are working. In that situation, they resort to easy meal mechanisms, fast food, junk food, ready to eat, cooking from scratch, One thing is they don't have the luxury of time. Another thing is fast food is more affordable than healthy organic food. That's the biggest paradox, not only in India, but also in the US and Europe. Fast food is much cheaper as compared to buying organic foods from the market, healthier foods from the market, like fruits and vegetables. Third problem is about influence of culture. The fact that social media and other forms of digital media, westernization promotes the consumption of fast food through advertisements, through very catchy titles and very catchy taglines that this is not fried, this is roasted. This has no sugar. This has zero trans fat. Now, we all know these are misleading labels, but people do fall for them. Well, that's the beauty of clickbait advertisement, is it not? It's also the beauty of something that's known as, forcing the consumer to believe in you, influencing. It's a part of your GS paper 4 ethics. How ethical is it to force the consumer, to influence the consumer? But that's what is happening right now. So, very easy question. Please start the introduction by quickly defining the keywords. I've told you 2 steps. Define the keywords in the introduction. Second, link them to each other. So, please define. Yes, the fast food industry is increasing in India. We see there is McDonald's. Yes, we see there is Domino's. We see KFC. We see so many brands who are very, very popular in India. Correct? Then in the introduction, please link the keywords together. Yes, it is increasing the health concerns, especially the concerns regarding non-communicable diseases, the NCD. Non-communicable diseases like cardiovascular, hypertension, diabetes type 2, thyroid problems, PCOD, cancers, they are on the rise among Indian urban population. Reason? Bad lifestyle, air pollution, but majorly the consumption of fast food. That's your introduction. Let's come to the body. You know what do you have to do in the body? How, when, why? Let's talk about how. Why did this happen? It all happened after the 1990s. We know that. A lot of people say this is the LPG reform, liberalization, privatization, globalization, but I don't say that. I say it is called SAP. It is Structural Adjustment Program. The government had no choice. We were running out of money, and the government had to allow foreign direct investment across various segments. The government had to allow multinational companies to come to India. Because only then IMF and World Bank will give us loans, basic economics, right? Then what happened? Companies like fast food companies started mushrooming in India. Then comes the social media who encourages you to eat it. It's trendy, it is fashionable, and people need social validation. They will eat this food. How many of us are actually aware about the daily dietary recommended dose of sugar or carbohydrate? I'm sure none of us are. And that's the advantage the companies kept on taking. Then they did a very smart thing. It all began with globalization in terms of homogenization. Now, you might wonder, what is this homogenization? Let me be very clear. Introduction is done about what is growing fast food and how does it create the non-communicable disease. Come to the body, how, when, why. Let's talk about why. Yes, after 1990s, companies came in India. We started having so many things like, as I mentioned, McDonald's, Domino's, and various other fast foods. Why? Please explain. Because people do not have any awareness about the daily recommended dose of various kind of sugars and fatty acids. We don't know. So we eat anything that's easy. We eat anything that's fashionable. Second, social media and Western culture influenced us to eat this. Third, the revolution that came in the form of delivery platforms like Swiggy, Zomato, all these have further made fast food more accessible to people. They are eating it more. Last but not the least, they began with homogenization of culture. What is culture homogenization? When the culture of Western countries like US and Europe starts spreading across the whole world and everybody tunes into Western food and Western lifestyle, that's called homogenization. It was very successful. But more successful was something that's called as globalization. These fast food companies like Domino's, McDonald's, and KFCs, they took up another solution that's called globalization. Globalization means globalization plus localization. They felt that in order to boost their sales in countries like India, which are vegetarian, Let's promote Indian version of McDonald's and Indian version of pizza. You have this dal makhani Domino's. You have this mek aloo tikki, the special Navrata thali. It all sounds very ludicrous, but that's the reality. So the products that are custom made for Indian taste, but they are coming from these multinational companies. It's not like they are healthy. They have the same amount of sugar, the same amount of trans fatty acids. But the name is changed. The brand has changed. Now, this is the Indianized version of cuisine. People will accept it. People will eat it. So through homogenization and localization, fast food penetrated completely in the Indian market. Yes. Now, let's answer the second part of the question. How did it lead to so many health problems? We have done when, we have done how. Now, let's do why. Why is it leading to NCD, non-communicable disease? Because the trend after eating these foods, what do? They give you insulin spike. Constant insulin spike will do what to your body? It will lead to fat deposition. You will become obese. You will become fat. That leads to various other diseases. That leads to the fact that today, 66% of all deaths in India are because of non-communicable diseases. 22% of these deaths are happening before the age of 70, particularly from the age group of 30 to 50. Again, we are suffering because this is also demographic dividend, right? The young working population. It's characterized by NCDs. What to do? Their food pattern is not good. Similarly, premature mortality. India is now experiencing a death that's happening to people under the age of 55 at a very fast rate. Quite unlike countries like Japan and South Korea, where the average lifespan being 80, 85, young people are much more healthy because they haven't allowed this kind of a complete privatization in the food industry, at least. Now, similarly, 13.9% was the rate of non-communicable death disease in 2025. Okay. Now, according to World Health Organization, we should reduce our premature deaths by 25%, but we have only done it to 13%. So definitely there is a proof, right? And you have to give many examples and proofs in your answer that why is this food consumption leading to these kind of diseases? That's very important to know. Okay. Now, once we have spoken about this, let's see that in conclusion, what we can write. So conclude your answer very simply by saying that unless there is better consumer awareness, unless people are trained how to read food labels, unless the FSSAI, the agency which gives permission to various companies to label their foods, creates a proper category for food identification, label identification, the product should not get a license from coming to the market. Please include healthy diet and nutrition in the new education policy 2020 and make it a mandatory course across schools from K to 12. This is one way we can fight the problem. Plus, yes, we have to create more awareness about PM Poshan Abhiyan, Eat Right movement. All these are the need of the hour. A very good thing was that India celebrated 2023 as the year of millets. Today we are saying, yes, the government wants to encourage at least the government schools to include millets in their daily meal planning, but that has to be universalized, across India. The benefit of local cuisine over local or global cuisine has to be identified. That's your answer. Very simple. Quite an interesting question, actually. And now to the second last question of the day. Achieving sustainable growth with emphasis on environmental protection could come into conflict with poor people's need in a country like India. Comment 250 marks, 250 words. Now, in this question, a lot of people will, obviously, I'm sure they were confused. This question you have to read at least 3 times to understand what is it trying to say. See, please understand that we are not saying that sustainable growth in India, environmentally sustainable growth in India is good for poor people or bad for poor people. We are using the word conflict here. Please learn to understand the keywords properly. You may have the knowledge. Here, it's not about having knowledge. It's about customizing and fitting that knowledge within the 250 words. What are the keywords here? Sustainable growth with environmental protection. Any economic development that takes care of environment is considered sustainable. One thing is clear. Now the question is saying, how does this conflict, which means conflict means good and bad both, good and bad both, how does it have a very mixed effect on the poor people in a country like India? In India, we know that so many people are multidimensionally poor even today. Certain states like Bihar who are topping in the list of multidimensional poverty. In a case like that, if you need to comment, comment means just give your opinion. No good, no bad, just give your opinion. A very neutral opinion. How does sustainable economic growth create a kind of mixed reaction on the poor people in India, which means is it good for the poor people or is it bad for the poor people? Yeah, you might think that what kind of a strange question is this? Obviously, sustainable economic growth should help everybody, but that's not the case. In the case of the poor population, it can have a mixed effect. This question looks very simple, but it has a huge paradox in it. It is a very contradictory question. Please understand that. So we need to say, one, how does sustainable economic growth help the poor people? But at the same time, how can sustainable economic growth harm the poor people also? Let me begin by an easy example. If I tell you that the government says completely put a ban on any industry that's using coal as a raw material, you think it's a good thing to do? You will say, yes, it's a very good thing to do because coal is resulting in a massive carbon footprint for India. It's a very good thing. India is actually following its nationally determined contributions by doing that. But if you ask a poor person who works for an industry which makes money only by processing, utilizing, or selling the coal, will his answer be the same? No. He might say that complete moratorium or a ban on coal usage will lead to my job loss. If I say that completely finish one railway project, will that not snatch the livelihoods of people who live on that? If I say completely stop open surface mining, it is dangerous for our economy. You will be saying that, yeah, it's a good thing. By stopping mining industry, you are protecting the climate. But am I protecting the salary of those who live on this industry? That's the paradox in this question. Sometimes environmentally sustainable growth can have a very dual effect on people. While it may be very good for your ecology, it may be very good for the more high-end sections of the population. It may kill the livelihoods of so many people who are living on such industries. That's what we need to see. So how will you begin your question? Give an introduction. Please define the keywords. Sustainable growth is a word that was coined by United Nations, which means that using your resources in such a way in the present times that they are also preserved for the upcoming future generations. Sustainable growth means when we tune our economic development in such a way that it takes care of environmental protection too. For example, the concept of circular economy. For example, the concept of using solar energy. For example, the concept of reducing carbon dioxide emissions by 33% by 2030. Yeah. Now let's talk about, in the same introduction, the second keyword. Does it conflict with the interest of the poor people? Yes, there is an inherent paradox in sustainable growth. Because while environment and society benefits from a sustainable growth development pattern, but it's the poor people who sometimes face a loss. Let's proceed now. Balancing sustainable growth, let's go to the body now. How, when, and why? Balancing a sustainable growth with environment has been a significant challenge in India from times immemorial. Think of the British period, how British had to actually, when they were industrializing India, how they created that entire Damini coal area for the Santhal tribals. Why did they do it? Was the purpose to help these tribals? Obviously not. The purpose was to relocate, to remove these tribals from forests and hills, so that the British could cut those trees for their own timber cultivation so that they can have better railways and better manufacturing industries. People have always suffered, whether it's the Narmada Bachao Andolan, whether it's the Chipko movement, people have paid the price for development. Today we are asking that today, as India wants to achieve zero net carbon emission by 2070 and India wants to reduce carbon footprint by 30% by 2030, we need to move away from economic growth based on fossil fuels and we need to go towards renewable energy like solar, nuclear, hydro, or wind energy. But there is somebody who will pay a price nonetheless. For example, environmental protection means you please restrict your carbon emission, stop industrial pollution, do not allow over mining in sensitive hills and forests. Stop creating transshipment projects like today in the Hindu. I have spoken about the great controversy, the great Nicobar project in the Nicobar Island and how the local tribals are unhappy. Somebody will always pay a price. Today, if we stop doing this development, we stop making river valley projects, we stop making industries, we stop making highways, and we stop making factories, who will suffer? Our GDP will suffer. The whole country might suffer. How will we become self-reliant if we do not manufacture? Recently, Indian government has permitted the mining of 13 other rare earth materials apart from lithium and cobalt, because India wants to be self-dependent in the manufacturing of rare earth materials. We don't want to depend on China, Australia, Chile. But it is coming at a price. When you mine the rare earth materials, there is massive air pollution, massive water pollution. Now, if you do not mine it, the country cannot grow economically. But if you mine it, how will environment be sustainable? And where does the poor man come in the picture? Let's understand. When you say that stop mining, when you say stop exploring rare earth material, when you say stop industrialization and stop making firecracker factories, stop making brick factories and stop these bangle factories because they pollute the environment, don't you think you are snatching away employment opportunities for 1 million people who depend on these activities? Do we understand today that in India, in the formal economy, less than 30% people are working? 70% people work in the informal sector industries like bricklaying, bangle making, cracker making, mining. Then what about those people? Cosmetic making. These are highly polluting industries, understand. But please also understand that these contribute majority, more than 50% of your gross domestic product. So what will you do? Will you stop these activities for protecting the environment? And then what happens to these people who are depending on them for livelihood? For example, the recent attempt at, creating more forest area and stopping any mining activity under the Forest Conservation Act, it has disallowed the local tribal people from coming to the forest. There was a movie that came a few years back, Kantara. It was based on the same theme. It was just absolutely very relevant for India. Sometimes police and the government wants to preserve biodiversity. A very good example is the Poibitra Wildlife Sanctuary of West Bengal. Poibitra Wildlife Sanctuary. You must know about it because we all talk about Kaziranga, but this is also from Assam actually. Poibitra Wildlife Sanctuary, a great wildlife sanctuary which has so much biodiversity. For the last 2 years, the battle is going on. Government says we cannot allow tribals and villagers from coming inside the reserved area because it disturbs the animals and it also leads to deforestation. But what will the tribals do? They have been living here for like decades now. Their ancestors were living here. Suddenly, creating a Forest Conservation Act and disallowing these people to cut the trees, pluck the flowers or the herbs, or poach the animals sustainably for the food will also kill them. It will make them hungry, starve. It will snatch their also livelihood, right? Because in India, majority of tribals, they depend on what? They depend on forest products. Their maximum sale comes from MFP. It comes from minor forest product sale. The government also gives an MSP on that. If you stop them from going in the forest, what will they earn? What will they eat? So this is the debate the question wants to talk about. That sometimes environmentally sustainable planning also has its own danger. It can endanger the lives and livelihoods of the poor people of the ground. So therefore, we need a very calibrated approach here, okay? So in the question, you do not have to talk about a solution. You just have to say how it impacts the livelihoods of these people. Like the coal mine, all the coal mines were closed. Restrictions were put on the coal mines under the National Green Tribunal. It said that it causes tremendous carbon dioxide and tremendous greenhouse gas pollution. But then imagine the situation of those people who used to earn a daily wage working on these mines in Jharkhand and Odisha. What about them? They are semi skilled people. Where will they go to find jobs? They will be victims of structural unemployment if they come to cities. Think about them. So that's the question. Please see the conflict and then decide which is a better path to take. So, what can we do? In the conclusion, maybe we can give just one or two sentences of solution. Like, for example, we can redefine the Forest Rights Act, wherein we need to understand that before asking a tribal or a villager to leave an area for national park, project, Great Nicobar project, give them some other livelihood. Create systems like training them into vocational skills. We can use PM Vishwakarma. We can use the very famous goal scheme of the tribals. Educate them. We are talking about Skilling India mission. Yes, please provide them skill. Give them some alternate opportunity. They will vacate. It's not like they won't vacate. Similarly, we have plans like, in situ slum development policy. As I said, rather than making people vacate, do an in situ development. Let the people live in slums and then allow for development rather than asking them to vacate because you want to create a park over there. That's not the right thing to do. Similarly, create more opportunities in solar energy projects. Like just last year, the government had introduced PM Kusum scheme. The farmers were given irrigation water to irrigate their fields, not through electric pumps, but through solar pumps. That was a very good move. So we need to do these initiatives, create renewable energy based projects so that people get employment also, environment is also protected. But, you cannot just blanket put a ban on activities saying that they cause pollution. Think of the people who depend on them also, right? After all, informal economy is the major driver of our GDP. We can't blanket shut that down. Similarly, Manrega is a good scheme. Mahatma Gandhi Rural Employment Guarantee Scheme. When you are giving 100 days of assured job to people from the rural communities, make sure you give them in projects that depend on renewable energy segment rather than giving them in industries which work on coal or mining industries, all of that. That's the question. And now quickly in 5 minutes, the last question for the day, again a lengthy one, 250 words, easy question. Does tribal development in India center around two poles? One displacement, other rehabilitation. Very simple question, very direct. GS paper 2 and GS paper 1 both are involved here. Social justice, social issues. 8.6% of Indian population is scheduled tribal as per 2011 census. If that's the number of tribal people, please understand that most of them are either very, very economically backward or their population is threatened because they are having a decline in their population, like the PVTGs of Odisha, particularly vulnerable tribal groups. Now, these people are also living in the forest or river valley areas or the mountains that are slightly geographically remote from the mainstream society. Which also means that Indian government, whenever it has to do some development plan like a dam, like another hydroelectric power plant. Today I spoke about the Great Nicobar project. Similarly, so many other projects are there. Whenever the government wants to do it, the tribals will have to relocate. They will have to leave their area and go somewhere. So therefore, every time there is a development, it is about two things. One, tribals have to be displaced. You have to remove the tribals and send them somewhere else. Next thing is, once you displace them, are you providing them rehabilitation? Rehabilitation means it comes from the word habitation, a place where somebody is living. Are you giving them another place to live? Today in the Hindu, I have discussed how the Tribal Council of Great Nicobar Island is complaining that the central government has not given us any rehabilitation. They are asking us to go away. Displacement is happening, rehabilitation is not happening. Nothing new, it is an age-old story in India. The question is saying exactly that development is about two things. One, ask them to go, but second thing, it is also important to give them a place to live. For example, now in this question, again start with introduction. Give a quick definition of how India has about 8.6% of tribal population. Highlight the census. Then mention that how they face problems of systemic exclusion, social, economic, cultural, political. In that situation, whenever there is a development that happens, there are two problems that tribals face and the government faces. One thing, displacement is a problem for the tribals. Now, tribal people are those people who are deeply dependent on the forest ecosystem. You know, majority of them believe in religions like totemism and animism even today. A lot of people think that this is Hindu tribal, that's Christian tribal. That's not true. Actually, majority of tribals had no formal religion. They believed in totemism and animism. It was only after the Bhakti movements and after the British government that came into India that tribals started getting converted into various other religions like Islam, Christianity, Hinduism, Buddhism. Initially, tribe is about celebrating nature. It's about nature worship. So they actually worship the trees and the rivers and other forest resources. Plus, they don't have a formal education like us. So they really depend on these resources. They make products out of them like honey, baskets made up of jute, coir, fruits, vegetables, pickles. They sell them and that's the source of income for them. Today, when you ask them to go away, when you make them displaced, imagine the condition they must be in. Without a formal job or without a formal qualification, which formal sector will give them job? None. Then what do? Half of them become agriculture laborers. Half of them become construction site laborers. Half of them just become street vendors. Half of them actually live a life of complete mishap. There is nothing that they can do for their own empowerment. Therefore, they are vulnerable. They always suffer because of industrialization and infrastructure development. That's how you start your introduction. And therefore, the government's responsibility is to provide them timely rehabilitation. Now, if that's the situation, please understand that let's proceed with the body. Again, same formula WHW. Why, how, when. Give an example. Give as many examples as you can that gets you very good marks in GS paper. Talk about the Niyamagiri Hills of Odisha, where so much mining has been happening that today there is a loss of lands for these tribals. Plus, the mining leads to contamination of groundwater, soil. If they grow crops there, they are consuming these materials. You know, there is so much of bromide poisoning, lead poisoning, chromium, all these materials are there in the soil and groundwater. What do these people drink? How do they irrigate their soils? That's the side effect of development. And then you talk about other examples like the Narmada Bachao Andolan, also you can talk about how the Sardar Sarovar Dam led to the relocation of so many tribals. They were not given enough compensation in money, neither were they given a new space to live in. Today, you can use the example of Great Nicobar Island. So always follow the news analysis, because you will know the recent examples from here. Okay, this is again controversial. Then we talk about the Forest Rights Act. The Forest Rights Act was created to understand and respect the rights of the tribals over the forest land, over their native land. It also said that in case these people are made to relocate, they should be given compensation, they should be given rehabilitation. But today that's not happening. That's how you end your body. Come to the conclusion and just say in 2-3 lines, what can we do to make the situation better? One, we know we cannot stop development. When we cannot stop development, then at least try to promote adequate rehabilitation. And how would you do that? One thing is the One Dhan Yojana for tribal empowerment. Another thing is TriFed, an agency that advertises, markets, and promotes tribal products, minor forest products. Please enact policies like the Fair Compensation Act of 2007. This is revolutionary. National Rehabilitation Resettlement Policy. Under this, there has to be proper timeline within which a person has to be given money or a new place to live in after being evacuated from a place. Last but not the least, especially the tribals who are identified under Schedule 6 of the Constitution. Give them acknowledgement. Give them a proper place to live. Another very beautiful act in India was the PISA Act. Panchayat, the powers of a panchayat. Just like in the 73rd Constitutional Amendment of India, Schedule 11 of Indian Constitution. These powers have been now given to tribal councils, tribal autonomous councils, so that they can fight for their own rights. So that's it from my side on the social issues paper. I hope you found all these 5 questions quite easy. But do remember, whether it's social issues or social justice, current affairs are something you have to base your answer upon. So with that, thank you so much. And on to the sir now for carrying on the discussion.
Thank you so much, ma'am. It was beautifully explained by you. And even Alok sir and Praveen sir also did their best to make you understand that what type of answers you should give to such questions. So now my part is geography. And you know, in GS paper 1, geography is a very vast component. And in this paper, a total 100 marks questions were asked from your geography portion. Total 8 questions were asked. Before explaining and going further into answers, let us first have this insight that from which component of geography maximum questions were asked. See, there were 4 short questions and 4 long questions. Now, out of these 4 long questions, one question was related to your energy. What? Your energy part means your economic geography, right? And in this, an examiner demands your insight on reserves. And reserves, what? Your oil reserves, petroleum reserves. See, I also want to relate this question with your current affair aspect also, because when from past 4 to 5 months, USA is continuously pressurizing India to not purchase oil from Russia. So this becomes a very, very important question. And here, examiner wants you to first explain that which are the important offshore, what your offshore oil reserves distributed worldwide, and what is the difference between offshore and your onshore oil reserves, right? So second question is, as we all know that, and even if you have seen many videos on social media platform where continuously this question and continuously videos come regarding what your disaster management, regarding urban planning, regarding infrastructure. So what we require for any urban planning or any project in a particular location, we require your remote sensing, we require satellites. Recently, if you know that NISAR project was launched with collaboration in which ISRO collaborated with NASA. And what is the main objective of your NISAR? To provide high quality images and even to give us insight on glacial melting, right? Your soil moisture, your forest cover, your flood prone regions, your disaster prone areas. But here we have to understand, apart from remote sensing technologies, now there is an intervention of, or you can say, your need of cutting edge technologies. For example, artificial intelligence. For example, drones. Now, drones and artificial intelligence, they are playing very important role in urban planning, in providing land records to rural households, in mitigating your disaster impact. So here examiner want you to throw a light that how, in addition to your GIS, that is geographical information system, and your RS technique, means remote sensing technique, your artificial intelligence and drones can play a very important role, right? So third question is from geomorphology. It is from geomorphology, and the name of topic is origin of continents and ocean. See, as we know that there is a saying, and yes, there are many hypotheses and theories that how continents were formed, how oceans were formed, how mountains were formed, and what are the factors or forces responsible for the continuous change of oceans and crust. And here, to understand this change, we need to go through three, your theories. One is continental drift theory, given by Alfred Wegener. Second theory is seafloor spreading, given by Harry Hess. And the last and the most important and authentic, information which gives us is plate tectonic theory. So here, examiner wants you to explain that how changes are being brought in the size of continents and oceans, and how crustal masses are changed due to tectonic movements. See, here you have to explain your plate tectonic theory. But in such question, I will recommend you to add diagrams. Add diagrams like here, if you see the keyword is tectonic movement, means tectonic plate. And you know that there are three types of plate margins: convergent plate margins, divergent plate margins, and transform plate margins. You have to draw diagram. This will provide, and this will provide you edge. And examiner, you can fetch more marks by explaining it through a diagram. Now let's move towards the last long question. It is related to human geography. See, in human geography, I teach population in very detail. I basically try to make my student understand that how the landscape, how the topography, how climate, how the availability of resources can influence the population density of that region. If you see, then you can understand that some region of your India is densely populated and some regions, they are sparsely populated. For example, the Thar region of Rajasthan, the population density is very less. Then take an example of northeastern states, especially Arunachal Pradesh and those states which border Myanmar. Their vegetation is very dense, topography is very steep, so population density is very low, right? But when you take an example of northern plains of India, actually the plain which is made up by the depositional work of rivers, and in these rivers, three main rivers play a very important role. One is Ganga, second is Brahmaputra, and the third is your Indus. But the largest part of your northern plains is made up by what? Your Ganga. Here you have to help the examiner in understanding that how in Ganga population is distributed, how Ganga's river basin actually influence the population density. And you have to explain the examiner with reference to land, soil, and water resources. Again, I want and I will recommend to those aspirants who are going to appear in next year mains that in such question, you should have a very good command in map making. Try to add map in such questions. Are you getting it? So now coming forward towards your 4 questions, which were short questions, very easy. According to me, these 4 short questions were very easy. You don't require any deep, knowledge to answer such questions. Now, we all know that what happened in Dharali right now. In few days back, Dharali was struck by devastating your floods, flash floods, in which more than 100 people lost their lives and many are still missing. So again, few days after this Dharali incident, one more cloudburst struck your Chasoti village of Kishtwar district in J&K, where again more than 70 people lost their lives. Now we are living in those world, in that world where climate change is a reality. It is a reality. And this climate change has many consequences. Climate change has direct impact on Arctic amplification. Due to climate change, the sea level is rising because of rapid glacial melt. And due to melting of glaciers and the rise of sea level, and in fact, the rise in the temperature of sea surface, what is happening? The coastal regions, the countries which have longest coast or the island countries, they are suffering the most, especially the countries which are called as small island developing nations, small island developing countries. They are most vulnerable to present climate crisis. So here examiner wants you to explain that how climate change and sea level rise is affecting the existence of many island nations. I will suggest to you that whenever such questions are asked, you have to focus in these island nations. Try to focus more on small island developing nations because they are facing the brunt of effects of climate change. And you have to explain it with an example. Are you getting it? So going forward to our next question, that is, what are non-farm primary activities? Again, human geography. Again, human geography. So from human geography, 3 questions were asked this time. So keep this thing in mind. When it comes to mains, human geography is very, very important. Very, very important component. So here the question is, what are non-farm primary activities and how are these activities related to physiographic feature in India? Means that India, there are many primary activities which are being practiced on daily basis. Now, what are primary activities? First, you have to start this question with the definition of primary activities. Now, primary activities are those which are dependent on the natural resources. For example, agriculture, farming, for example, your poultry, for example, your fishery, mining. But we have to understand this fishery, mining, poultry, these are non-farming primary activities. So what examiner wants in this question, that you should answer that how non-farm activities are directly related to the topography, how the physiography, how the landscape actually influence the non-farm primary activity. You have to give example because here the examiner is clearly mentioning that discuss with suitable examples, right? So our second last question is explain briefly the ecological and economic impact or benefit of solar energy generation in India with suitable example. As we all know that climate change, as I told you earlier, that climate change is a reality now. And we have to change our activities to actually control the greenhouse gases. Why there is climate change? Because the activities which we are doing, those activities are dependent, or the manufacturing of goods and services are being done by using fossil fuels. And fossil fuels are the largest contributor of greenhouse gases. Not only greenhouse gases, fossil fuels are also responsible for your air pollution. Let's take an example of Delhi. During winter, why the air quality of Delhi become worst? There are many reasons, many factors behind it. One of them is what? Your thermal power plant, where we are burning coal. And this burning of coal releases harmful gases, which actually is creating or making air more polluted. So here, examiner wants you to explain that how renewable energy is benefiting India as well as what? Your whole world, right? In economic as well as ecological aspect. But you don't need to mention world here. You have to keep India in mind while answering this question, right? And the last question is from, again, geomorphology. But here, there is small touch of disaster management, GS paper 3 also. Disaster management, GS paper 3 also. As we know that tsunami is one of the most destructive natural event, isn't it? And tsunami occurs, or tsunami is caused because of, large water displacement, large and rapid water displacement. And tsunamis are long, your sea waves, long high sea waves, which unlike normal waves travel at a speed of 800 km per hour. And where they are formed, where they are caused when there is undersea earthquake or there is volcanic eruption in seabed, or there is a landslide. Now here, what you have to do, this question is I can say that this is the easiest question to answer, easiest question. So what are tsunamis? First, you have to define tsunamis here. In introduction part, try to finish the introduction in 30 to 40 words. Then how and where they are found. Explain their formation and give the example, like Pacific Ring of Fire, Indian Ocean. In 2004, Indian Ocean witnessed the most devastating tsunami, in which more than 2.3 lakh people died. And this was caused in the coast of Sumatra Island in Indonesia. So give an example after explaining the formation and what are their consequences. Means consequences, obviously you have to explain the negative impact and try to explain the consequences in 3 different aspects, like economic consequences, ecological consequences, and social and health impact of tsunami. So let's begin with our first question, right? Here I have, explained the answer thoroughly. Here I'm trying to make you understand that what should be the introduction, how you can give, a best introduction to any answer. See, while writing answer, we have to keep 3 things in mind. First is introduction part, and in introduction part, try to understand the keywords of the questions. So what is the keyword here? That how are climate change and the sea level rise affecting the very existence of many island nations? So climate change is the highlighter or keyword here. Start your introduction with climate change. So what you should do? Climate change is leading to global warming and sea level rise. And why this is happening? Because of what? Your glacier melt. And this global warming and sea level rise is thermally expanding our oceans, isn't it? When ocean will expand, obviously sea level will rise. And those countries which are just 1 to 3 to 4 to 5 meters above sea level, they are most vulnerable. They are most vulnerable countries, especially the countries, small island countries which are located to the northeast coast of Australia. We call them small island. We name them small island developing nations. If you remember, COP29, UNFCCC COP29 was held in Baku, Azerbaijan, where these small island nations, they represented their concern. They requested the developed countries, the industrialized countries, to fund them, to give them climate fund, so that they can mitigate the impact of your climate change. So that they can keep themselves on the track of what your adaptation measures. So here, first go with the climate change. Like climate change has accelerated the sea level rise through thermal expansion of oceans and glacial melting. Low-lying small island developing states are among the most vulnerable, facing the existential your crisis. Now in body part, give an example that which island is facing it, right? So how you will write physical threat? Now 80% of the Maldives are neighboring country. 80% of the Maldives land is almost less than 1 meter, lies less than 1 meter above sea level. Imagine how much vulnerable it is. And due to rise in sea level, what will happen? There will be an encroachment in agricultural land. There will be an encroachment in tourism. Many tourist places will get submerged due to increase in sea surface temperature. This sea surface temperature will lead to coral bleaching. And you know, corals are considered and they are known as rainforest of oceans because of their biodiversity. Corals are responsible for generating, $1 billion revenue for many island nations. And ultimately, if physical threat is that there will be a saltwater intrusion in freshwater aquifers, and what will happen? The agriculture will become unsustainable. Second is economic impact. As I told you, like Kiribati and Seychelles, these islands are facing and witnessing the decline of tourism and fisheries. There is direct attack, direct impact, negative impact on their livelihood. And many islands in Pacific Ocean, they are witnessing loss of coconut and taro cultivation, which is their only source of livelihood. Now the third is socio and political impact. Don't you think because of rise in sea level, there will be an encroachment of exclusive economic zone? Recently, what happened? One island was discovered to the coast of your Brazil. It is submerged island. Now, Brazil went to international organization to claim that island. But that island is out of the exclusive economic zone of Brazil. But Brazil is putting pressure on international organizations, those who basically make such frameworks to alter what the length of exclusive economic zone, so that this island can become the part of Brazil. Try to understand, because of rise in sea level, what will happen? That the country's sovereignty will be threatened, because there will be change in what your exclusive economic zone. And yes, due to climate change, people are migrating. For example, in Papua New Guinea, there is a small island that is called Carteret Island. It witnessed the first climate refuge. So this is how you explained the introduction, and you also covered body part with very fine examples. Now, what is required in conclusion? Try to conclude any answer with very simple words. Don't exaggerate it, or don't try to add complicated words. Make it very simple. Like you can see here what I have wrote, that now island nations, they are basically witnessing the present existential crisis. So what is required? Their plight underscores the urgency of global climate. Such should be the keywords. Use such keywords. Urgency of global climate justice and effective adaptation support. And you know, India is supporting these countries so that they can get fund from your developed countries, industrialized countries, which are responsible for climate change. I hope first question is very clear to you. Let's jump to another question, the second question, that what are non-farm primary activities? As we have discussed it earlier, let's begin with the answer, that what you have to write in this question. What should be the introduction? Simple. Keep it very simple, that what are primary activities? Primary activities dependent on natural resources. Farming is the most common primary activities. But there are those activities also other than farming which are too dependent on what? Your natural resources. For example, sheep rearing, animal husbandry, forestry, mining. Now, we know that all these non-farm primary activity has very close link to the availability of resources, to the availability of what it is based on what climate. It is also influenced by what your availability of soil moisture. It is also influenced by what your rainfall pattern. So let's understand it. First, you have to introduce it in this way, and in body part give an example, because here examiner wants you to explain each and every activity with example. Now let's take an example of Himalayan regions. If you have ever visited your alpine regions, like which we in Hindi call Marg, like Gulmarg, Sonmarg. What is the meaning of Marg? Marg means grasslands which are found in temperate region, in high altitude region where rainfall is very less. But these grasslands are very nutritious. The primary activity in such area is sheep rearing, is what production of pashmina, is production of wool. Because here agriculture is not possible because of extreme climate, especially during winter season. So what people living there, they prefer to do sheep rearing. And yes, in middle Himalayan region, especially in Pir Panjal region, lumbering is very prominent because of availability of most valuable trees, like what? Your pine, like your cedar. So in Himalayas, there are two types of activities, and it is dependent totally on the topography of Himalayas. Are you getting it? Now let's take an example of Gangetic Plain. What you will see in Ganga Plain. Almost every household which is involved in agriculture activity, they have cattle. They are connected to dairy. Why dairy is very prominent, and how this Ganga belt basically support dairy? Because of availability of fertile soil and availability of fodder also. There is availability of fertile soil, fodder and water. What else you require for dairy? So why in your Indo-Gangetic Plain dairy farming is very prominent? It is because of fertile soil, fodder availability. Are you getting it? And high population. If you have high population, then the pressure on land is extreme. So land is very less. So what, each household will prefer there, because they know that they have very small land. Maximum farmers which live on these plain areas, they are known as small and marginal farmers, having land less than 2 hectares. So it is not possible for them to do, agriculture only and to feed their family. This is the reason they do dairy, because dairy doesn't require, a huge land. Fodder is already available in the market at a very cheap price. Are you getting it? Now let's take an example of Chota Nagpur Plateau. When I say this Chota Nagpur Plateau, what type of activities you are imagining there? In human geography and in Indian geography as well, we have learned about that Chota Nagpur Plateau is known as mineral belt of India. Chota Nagpur Plateau is mineral belt of India. It has huge resources of coal. It has huge resources of what? Bauxite. So the availability of mineral in Chota Nagpur Plateau is basically deciding that what type of activities people are going to perform there. This is the example which you have to mention. Take an example of coastal plains and islands. Let's move to your this part. This is Gujarat. This is Kutch Peninsula. Right? This is Kutch Peninsula. What you will see, that salt production is very prominent. Salt production is very prominent here. It is widely practiced in Gulf of Kutch. And in desert area like Thar area, camel rearing, domestication of camel is very common. This is what you have to write. See how simple it is and how you're going to conclude it. Again, the way you started it, try to conclude it in similar manner, that the non-farming primary activities are closely shaped by what we learned. Physiography, it determines resources, livelihood pattern, and regional economic diversity. I hope this was very easy for you. Now, let's jump to our third question. Explain briefly the ecological and economic benefit of solar energy generation in India with suitable example. That what benefit we are getting by installing solar parks. As you know that there are solar parks installed in Rajasthan and Gujarat. There's a solar park which is called Rewa Solar Park in MP, which partially provides energy or electricity to Delhi metro station. And it is because of Rewa solar power plant that the transport fare of Delhi metro is very affordable. So in economic benefit, you can write that in long run, the electricity cost could be reduced because of the installation of solar energy power plant. So how you're going to start it? Again, try to define solar energy. And we know that solar energy is a clean, and clean means do not emit greenhouse gas. This is what you have to write in ecological benefits. See how simple it is, right? It is clean and renewable energy. And yes, half of the India lies in torrid zone, in heat surplus zone. India has high solar insolation, isn't it? That now this is the fact which you have to remember. What is the high solar insolation average in India? It is 4 to 7 kilowatt hour per meter square per day. And you know, to fetch or to bring more benefit from these renewable energy, we have started many initiatives. We have supported many initiatives. Even India, with the support of many countries, this was the brainchild of India. What? This International Solar Alliance. Now more than 100 countries are member of this International Solar Alliance, in which we are trying to, together to produce more solar energy and helping those countries which do not know the technology to generate or produce solar energy. So we have many initiatives in which we are trying to install more solar parks, and we are collaborating with international companies and other countries also. So we can procure more and more clean energy. This is what you have to write. With initiatives like National Solar Mission and International Solar Alliance, India is expanding solar capacity to achieve net neutrality, zero carbon emission. And yes, we know that renewable energy is the most important way to achieve net neutrality or carbon neutrality. So first, go through the ecological benefit in the body part. In body, what you will write, that these clean energy helps us in mitigating what? Your greenhouse gas emission and air pollution as well. Now, thermal power plant is a water intensive your plant. It requires enormous water to produce electricity. In contrary to it, solar power plant or solar parks, they require almost minimum water for the energy generation. Imagine if we replace more than 10 to 20 thermal power plant with solar parks, how much water we are going to conserve. So conservation of water, this is what you have to write. And yes, electricity, clean electricity in rural areas. There are many government schemes. Mention some of the government schemes here, that we are providing solar pumps in what? Rural areas to farmers, so that their energy demand could be met. from solar energy. They should not use, electricity from thermal power plant. This we are doing under PM Kusum. Now, coming forward, economic benefit. We burn more than $50 billion every year. India spend more than $50 billion on your fossil fuels, on import of fossil fuels. Don't you think why we are burning, why we are importing fossil fuels, why we are importing natural gas, crude oil? What is the reason? Because our industries, majority of the sectors, they demand energy, and we are fulfilling this energy demand by importing natural resources from foreign country. But we have to give them billions of dollars. Don't you think that if solar energy generation capacity increases in India year by year, our import dependency will decline? We will save billions of dollars, and we will invest that billions of dollars in our welfare schemes for the welfare of our community, for our people. Now, when you are establishing solar parks, maintenance is required. To maintain it, you require what? Your labor. It will create employment. This is the economic benefit. Employment generation, right, will be created because of what? The maintenance and the installation of solar parks. Like it happened in Rajasthan and Gujarat. We have the example, live example. And yes, it will reduce the electricity cost for a long run. This is what you have to write. Now, how you are going to close it? How you are going to conclude it? See, again, I have mentioned a very simple statement here that solar energy provides a win-win pathway, delivering both ecological sustainability and economic resilience, making it central to India's green growth strategy. I hope you enjoyed it thoroughly. Now, very important and the easiest question of GS paper 1 from geomorphology. And I told you that, yes, your disaster management also plays a very important role here, right? What are tsunamis? It is very simple. What you are going to write in the introduction part that defines tsunamis. Tsunamis are long high sea waves, very different from normal waves. Why? Because of their height, because of their speed, velocity, because of their destruction. They are different from normal waves. And how they are formed, how they are caused, this is important. But formation, you have to write it in body part. So tsunamis are long high sea waves triggered by sudden displacement of large water masses due to undersea earthquake, volcanic eruption, or landslides. See, in 30 to 40 words, you have to finish your introduction. Now, in body part, you will start first with the formation, and then you will write the consequences, the impact, the negative impact, where they are found. You can also add diagram here, right? They are majorly found in subduction zone, where two tectonic plates are colliding. What? Two tectonic plates are colliding. And one among them is what? One among them is oceanic plate. One among them is oceanic plate. And you know that when continental plate and oceanic plate collides, continental plate and oceanic plate collide, which goes down, which subducts, that is oceanic plate. Why? Because it is denser. It is denser. So this is the Benioff zone. This is the Benioff zone. We also call it subduction zone, right? And they collide. Why they collide? What is the reason behind it? It is what? Your convectional current. It is convectional current originating within the mantle. But you need not to write such. Just give the example. Just draw a diagram. This will help the examiner in understanding your knowledge. So formation majorly occurs in What subduction zone where tectonic plates collide. And yes, example, as I told you, Pacific Ring of Fire, Indian Ocean. Give an example of 2004 Indian Ocean tsunami, where more than 2.3 lakh people died. Now, please write the consequences. Tsunami has consequences and try to cover it in different way, right? What are the ecological impact? And you know that what are the ecological impact? The coastal ecosystem will be destroyed by intrusion of salt water, isn't it? The coastal land will be totally destroyed, maybe because of submergence, intrusion of salt water. So this is the first, consequence. What is the second consequence? Do you remember that many infrastructure project was destroyed when tsunami struck Japan, and there was one nuclear power plant also, Fukushima? So mention that what will be the economic impact, economic devastation of fisheries, ports, many tourist places, which will demand huge maintenance cost or huge construction cost, not maintenance. Then social impact. Many times that disaster creates a psychological impact on an individual. Those, especially those who survives. Take an example of Dharali. Those who survived that devastating disaster, it is very tough for them to recover from it, right? They will suffer from many psychological traumas. So it also has long-term trauma on an individual, especially who survives. So how you're going to end it? Tsunamis are the most destructive natural hazard. What is required? Effective early warning system. This is where India is lacking right now. If we know that cloudburst events or disaster events are becoming more frequent year by year in India, what is required? The installation of early effective early warning system. For example, installation of Doppler radar. I hope you are able to understand that what should be the answer of questions especially asked in UPSC. Now let's begin with a long question, right? The lengthiest question. It is of 250 words, 15 marks. And the first question is, give a geographical explanation of the distribution of offshore oil reserves of the world. Do keep this thing in mind. I will recommend you, whenever you sit in such examination, try to read question twice or thrice. It is important, because many times due to that ambience and due to that pressure, we sometimes misunderstood that is it offshore or onshore. It happens with many students. Are you getting it? So what I will advise you, whenever you are appearing in such examination where you go through tremendous pressure, it is very important to read question twice or thrice. This will help you in understanding that what are the keywords, what actually the examiner wants you to write. So here your focus should be on offshore oil reserves of the world. You have to explain that in worldwide, where are the offshore your oil reserves, and how offshore oil reserves are different from onshore oil reserves. Means you have to also explain that difference between your offshore and onshore oil field. See, onshore oil field, they require more advanced tools. The cost to procure or extract onshore oil is costlier than the offshore oil. What are the ecological differences while extracting onshore oil and offshore? This also we will learn in this answer. So how you're going to write, how you will begin with your answer? First, explain petroleum reserves or crude oil reserves. We know that in India also, oil reserves are found onshore and offshore. Take an example, onshore oil field. For example, Assam, Digboi, Nunamati. Take an example of Gujarat, Ankaleshwar, Vadodara. Take an example of Rajasthan, Badmer. All these are onshore oil fields. But Mumbai High, Basin Island, these are example of offshore oil fields. Similarly, worldwide, there are onshore as well as offshore oil fields. This is what you have to define in introduction, that petroleum reserves are found both onshore, land-based sedimentary basins like Assam, and offshore in continental shelves or shallow seabeds, isn't it? So offshore oil has gained importance with technological advances. As I told you now, that in offshore oil, by extracting offshore oil, we require what? Advanced tool, right? We require advanced tool. Let's then body part, you have to explain the distribution at a global level, what your offshore oil reserves. I will recommend you to add what? Your diagram here. This is very important, to add diagram here. Add a world map. Now you are preparing for UPSC. I don't need to ask such, question to you that you know how to make map or not, how to draw maps or not. It is very important. You should know how to draw map. World map, India's map, right? Some islands. These are very important part. So explain the examiner the offshore oil fields distributed worldwide through example, like this Arabian Peninsula, right? This Niger country. In South America you find, even in Appalachian Basin region, in Canada also, right? In the land closer to North Sea, in the interior parts of Russia, right? These are important. What your offshore oil reserves? Middle East, explain Persian Gulf. Saudi Arabia. In North Sea, explain what your UK and Norway, they are doing offshore oil reserve extraction. Then in West Africa, as I told you, Nigeria, Angola, Ghana, these countries have huge offshore oil reserves. In South America, Brazil, Campos and Santos basins. In North America, Gulf of Mexico, USA, Mexico, especially in Appalachian region. And near Appalachian region, there was world's first oil field. That was Pennsylvania. Now it is not working. Now the first and the oldest working oil field is what? Your Digboi in Assam. After explaining it, what you have to do? Difference. Write a difference between offshore and onshore oil reserve. First, you have to explain the location. This is the first difference. Second, exploration and cost. As I told you that offshore requires advanced technology, right? Rigs, platform, subsea pipelines. Offshore cost is very high. Although onshore also require higher technology, but not more than offshore. In environmental risk, offshore oil fields has more. They are more destructible. Destructible in the sense because of oil spills. Because of oil spill, they are responsible for marine pollution. But when it comes to your onshore can degrade groundwater, can contaminate groundwater. So both have different environment risk. And production share, we know that onshore is still dominating. Onshore, but offshore now contributes 30% of global output. Still onshore is dominating, but due to advanced technology, due to remote sensing, due to R&D, every year we are exploring new sites, new onshore sites. This is what you have to write. I hope this is very clear. Now moving towards our next question, that how can artificial intelligence and drones be effectively used along with GIS and remote sensing technology in locational and aerial planning. What is the meaning of aerial planning? That how to, do a planning in which we can use the resources in a sustainable manner. So here we have to understand that optimal use of land and unexploitative use of resources. This is the theme under what your aerial planning. And as India is witnessing rapid urbanization, there are many, huge infrastructure projects which are going on in India. And there are many, urban colonies which India is building. Even the real estate means the private companies are heavily investing in India. And they are responsible for developing many beautiful, residential colonies. Don't you think that before doing any or starting any infrastructure project, we require a detailed analysis of that particular area to mitigate the impact of disaster? Maybe it is possible. Today we don't see any river near that land. But once it was under your river. Just take an example. What happened in 1960s? USA's intelligence company, that is CIA, through a satellite. The name of that satellite was Corona. That satellite was to, click images of whole world, so that CIA can get intelligence regarding the activities of any country. And it was done in 1960. From 1960 to 1972, that Corona spy satellite clicked more than 8 lakh high resolution images, and many images of India was also part of it. After 1972, all these classified images were declassified. Now these declassified images are being used by Indian scientists. You know what? To understand that how, Ganga looked during 1960 and how much change is being seen in the floodplain of Ganga, so that we can introduce mitigation measure, so that we can understand that how to clean Ganga, how to stop encroachment in Ganga, to understand how many wetlands have been encroached to build infrastructure. This is what actually this question is. But here examiner wants, apart from this, how artificial intelligence and drones can play a role along with it, how they can help scientists or the urban planners or the policy makers to, do a more accurate urban planning. So what should be the introduction? That locational and aerial planning involves what? Your optimal use of land and resources for urban development, agriculture, disaster management, and infrastructure planning. The integration of artificial intelligence and drones with GIS and RS technique, it will improve the accuracy. Planning will be more accurate, isn't it? Data driven and real time processes. Is it clear? Any problem here? Now, what are its applicability? This is what we have to understand. Application kya hai? Right? So, urban and infrastructure planning. Don't you think that GIS and remote sensing provide us detailed data to understand where population density is more, where population density is less? Is it clear? So in body part, you have to write the applicability, where we can use it, where we can apply it. See, GIS and remote sensing satellite will help government or any project planner in understanding that how we should do a smart city planning. But what drone will help you in understanding? Drone will help you in understanding that where encroachment has been done, where construction project should be. It will help you in monitoring the construction project. Let's take an example. There is a scheme called Swamitva scheme. In Swamitva scheme, what we are doing, we are providing land records to rural household owners, because they don't have any land record, due to which banks do not provide them loan. So for their upliftment, their economic upliftment, what government is doing under PM Swamitva scheme, government is providing them your land records. How? By clicking images. And images have been clicked with the help of drones. Here we are not using remote sensing because it is not required, because we want accurate land mapping. Here drones play a very important role. Then when it comes to agriculture and rural planning, recently NISAR satellite has been launched, in which ISRO and NASA collaborated. What is the purpose of NISAR? The purpose of NISAR is to understand, is to evaluate, is to analyze that how much moisture soil lacks. The job objective of NISAR is to understand that where forest has been degraded or where glaciers are rapidly melting. But if you see where drone will help, remote sensing and your GIS will help government in understanding the crop health, but drone will help farmers to monitor pest infestation, to monitor irrigation, to do precision agriculture. After Dharali incident, drone footage was taken. Through drone footage, we were able to understand that how much destruction has been done by that flash flood, and what mitigation and what your disaster hit areas are required right now, what people are required right now. Remote sensing will help us in understanding that how many glacier lakes are vulnerable, are very risky. But drones will help us in understanding that how after disaster, what measures you should take, you should take to help the affected persons. Then comes environment and resource planning, as I discussed earlier. Through satellite images, last time we provided information to government, right, that there is a cases of stubble burning in your northwestern province, especially in Punjab and Haryana, due to which, air pollution is becoming worst. But what a drone will do? Here, drone will help in monitoring that at what time these farmers, they do what, or they burn their stubble or their waste. This is what you have to write. This was all about today's session, as all of us tried our best to give you a deep insight and to make you understand that what should be the approach and how you should write, an appropriate and accurate answer. See, the overall weightage of geography there was 8 questions and the marks were 100 marks. After geography, history was the second most important component. in GS paper 1, then this social issues, and last was world geography. My request to all of you is that try to understand the behavior of UPSC, how UPSC every year change the pattern of question. As all of us were expecting that this time UPSC will ask very dicey question, but more than 50% questions in GS paper 1 were direct, very easy to write. So my piece of advice to all of you is that practice makes a man perfect, and this is a lesson for those aspirants who are going to appear in next year, that do maximum answer writing. Maximum answer writing will help you in critical understanding of any question. I hope all of you enjoyed today's lecture, and I wish you all the best. May you all become what you are aspiring for. Thank you so much once again to everyone. Jai Hind, Jai Bharat.